6:04 versus late, sorry. We have everybody here, it's obviously a forum. First, item is approval of the minutes from the November 14th meeting.
Judy did send the corrections, which I did get, and they are in the final draft over here.
Perfect, thank you, Judy.
I will approve that.
Second.
All in favor? Alright. Public comment, items on the agenda. Everyone here has airport business, let's just plow on with it, we'll be here for a while. Items for discussion, engineering consulting, 5-year RFQ.
So just to give you guys a refresher, this is the job that Bolt Lemming has been doing for us for the last 5 years. We do this every 5 years. They are the firm that we go to do plans, specs for our construction projects. They do planning, grant writing, oversee construction and provide those services. As if assuming you read or at least scanned the documents, there's no price negotiation at this point. This is purely which firm you think is going to give us the best quality of stuff based on their presentations and their submittals.
For our own benefit, what is the prices of quality? Are we able to talk on that just so we understand, like,
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're.
well, you said the pricing isn't part of this.
So individual projects will have kind of a negotiated price, and then they'll go through like a fair market review that the FAA is
Okay.
that all of that's later.
Okay, got it.
At the end of this process, we basically have a master agreement that says you're our firm. We're going to give these set of projects to you based on what we had in the RFQ. And as money rolls in, then we just do separate work orders where that price comes in.
Comes into play, okay.
But you don't pay any kind of fee just to like have them on retainer or something.
Yeah, okay.
Does it make a difference to you whether the company has most of these things in-house, like Bolton and Bank, versus they use 4 different consultants for, you know?
I mean, to me, it doesn't, as long as the end product is fine, because they're gonna manage the
So they
subcontract.
you don't have to deal with that.
You know, like we did the terminal study, the space needs study, that was Bolton Meek and then a couple of subs. And I mean, there were meetings where we collectively had everybody together, but the conversation still flows me, consultant, and then them to the subs. So it's not a terrible. And that's the way any construction project works too. It's us, Bolton and Mink, or Bolton and Mink as our voice. And then it flows to whoever the prime contractor is, and then they filter the messages.
And all of these have somebody local that you can talk to who's right here.
They'll all have a point of contact, depending on what you define local as, maybe you're not, somewhere in some quad cities. So it, you know, that's more preference, but out of the 4, I don't think we're gonna get a bad product with that. That's kind of why you have all 4. If there was a reason to narrow it down from what, and these are the original submittals, so there was no intermediate, but we'd have there for the firms.
Sweet.
Thank you.
All right.
Timing wise, again, we told everybody 30 minutes, 20 minutes for presentation, 10 minutes for Q&A. I mean, don't have to hold them to that, but it just as long as like you're treating everybody equal.
Yeah.
Okay. CMTs first.
You put them here by order, right?
Should, yeah, the staff should be in order.
Oh, well, here I go. So that's not everything.
CMT, Bolton, first little door.
Yep.
You roll dice and the highest number went that way.
It's something like that, like,
You want to sit next to me?
so you like have a whole competition, you get first.
Oh, yeah, I have no idea.
That was using the little dots. Oh, but I was in like, I was in there. Yeah, right. Oh.
Have anything career-wise you needed, or
As long as you loaded it up, or we did have a phone interface.
After Chris, you can do it over the side.
Sure.
Oh, there it is right there.
So that's all. Go ahead on there.
Yeah.
I was not paying attention to stuff. No worries.
Guess I didn't know you said.
Yeah.
Yep, that should be it. The menu, Mike, and then drop down the view. And then full screen should be in there. That, perfect. Let's make sure it works.
Very good. You're gonna operate that?
I think so. It's a lot of responsibility.
It is.
Take it away.
Okay.
All right.
Well, good evening and thank you for having us here tonight. We're a real pleasure to be back here. I was back here several years ago and interviewed in this room, and we were unsuccessful for a planning study, but have enjoyed being back here in Iowa City. My name is Brad Hamilton, and I am Director of Aviation Services for Crawford Murphy and Tilley. I'm a 35-year veteran of the aviation industry and a 35-year employee of CMT as well. I would ask you or offer that as we're going through our presentation, if there are any questions that you have, feel free to stop us. We feel like the best questions are as we're in the context of the discussion. So that's the best way to learn and understand who we are. In short, our goal, our objective for you is to put your vision into reality. And we look to do that every day, but in this context for you, you've already got projects that you have envisioned what they are, but needing to be able to implement those. But the reality of how those projects come together is more than just individual projects. It is a program overall. And being able to try to understand the nuances of each project by itself, but then how they interrelate is a value that we believe that we bring great experience in being able to navigate the overall program. CMT as a whole, we've been in business for over 75 years. In that practice time, we've built a national aviation practice. We are a top 25 provider of aviation services in the nation. Got over 125 aviation professionals. And so on that side of it, you get deep bench, you get great expertise. There's very few things that we haven't seen or done. And so being able to leverage that team is a benefit to you. The bookend to that is we're a relatively small firm. And we think that's really important because that allows us to be able to adapt to what your needs are, provide the flexibility of what direction you need to go to be able to accomplish your goals. And so we think it's both the expertise with the small firm feel that we believe makes CMT unique. But it really comes down to the project team. And Travis, you've been able to meet, and Travis has had the opportunity to work with you on the solar project. So you've got a little taste of Travis overall. He's a 20-year veteran of the industry, also a 20-year employee of CM&T. Travis has worked at both general aviation and commercial airports, and he is both airside and landside experience. He's really seen pretty much everything that could come at you, including implementing a solar project. Alongside, and Travis is our manager of our Quad City office, and we got an aviation team that is in the Quad City office that will look to support you, serve you. On the manager level, Craig Loudon is looking to support Travis. Craig, as well as a licensed professional engineer, 20 years in the industry, 20-year CMT employee. But Craig, about 10 years into his career, took a different path and went down the planning route. And Craig has shown great aptitude and success in the front end of projects, where many times projects can actually die or be disrupted in the planning process. And we'll touch on that a little bit more. But Craig has shown great success in not only planning concepts, but building programs and various funding strategies on how to accomplish your goals overall. In short, we got 3 value messages. Number 1, longevity. Craig and Travis have been here 20 years. They're our best. You're getting CMT's best with these 2. But they've been around 20 years. If they haven't left CMT, they're probably not going to leave now. But that can give you some assurance that they're going to be around. That's really important when we're in a kind of a more mobile workforce, that consultants can have different people working on it. Pretty good assurance that Craig and Travis are going to be here at the end of your program, not just at the beginning. Secondly, our overall aviation resume. Again, deep understanding of what the issues are and even the unforeseen, right? It's the things that when we run into a bump, how do we deal with that? And we'll many times reach within the overall larger aviation team to be able to come up with solutions to answers that, we may not have with one individual. And then lastly, we believe a value that we bring is a programmatic lens to your CIP overall.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about the organization, how we have planned the structure of our team on this. Obviously, as Brad mentioned, CMT would be the prime consultants for this. Aviation's in our DNA. We've been doing aviation since the company started in 1946 for over 7 to 8 years. We have brought on Alliance Architecture. They're a nationally recognized architectural firm that specializes in aviation terminal design. We have many projects with Alliance throughout the company and throughout the Midwest area. Currently, we are working with a project with them, a terminal project in Dubuque with them right now. Then also, we have brought on MMS Consulting, which, as most of you probably are aware, an Iowa-based firm here. We had brought them in on the solar project to do some of our survey work, and we would like to kind of continue. That was a great relationship, and we'd like to continue using them on projects going into the future. So diving right into your CIP program, that's really kind of the important piece of this whole conversation. Here you can kind of see a layout of the airport of the different projects we have. We have everything ranging from runway rehabilitation, which kind of involves crack sealing and some pavement rehabs, to GA facility work, to runway extensions, to the terminal and the solar project, kind of a wide varying project. What I wanted to do, though, is kind of focus in on the main projects we think are really critical to the progress of your program and how we can speak to those to really make sure you get what you need from a program perspective. And really those 3 projects we want to focus in on are the solar array, the terminal, and the runway 7 extension project. So runway or the solar project phase 2 is kind of the first one I wanted to talk about. Obviously, that's your most experience with CMT. I believe we delivered a good project for you and a good time and everything. So just want to kind of, with that being fresh, want to jump off of that one. Initially we had a solar viability study where we determined the sizing of the solar arrays and layouts. And out of that study came a phase 1 and a phase 2 because of funding primarily was the reason that was broken up. Phase 1, obviously constructed, has been energized, is powering the airfield ball, terminal building, and then the ambulance care building or building D. And this phase 2 project, the intent is to power the OPL facility as well as the jet air maintenance hangar. With that, full array is about 280 panels, as illustrated there, the layout that we show in front of the terminal building, and it's designed to offset 100% of the energy needs for that facility. We do know there's some conversations around a carport design potentially with the terminal building. We have worked with carports previously at the Quad City Airport, and as well as our headquarters in Springfield, Illinois. We put a carport system in our own parking lot. So that's something we can change if we need to go into the future. So really what we bring to the table here, seamless transition to the phase 2 project. We have many lessons learned from the first phase that we can carry forward onto the second phase. All the in-house expertise needed to do that project. It's kind of a unique project. It's not something all civil engineering firms can do. We had everybody from planning, environmental, to electrical engineers, to aviation engineers, to just civil engineering. Runs the gamut of everything in there. we were able to deal with all the different permitting issues. There were some last minute permitting issues that came up through the Iowa City permitting process that were a little bit of a challenge, but we addressed those, got those under wraps as soon as we could, just to make sure the project did not get delayed. And with that, we went from initial design of that project to energy generation within a year, which is quite a feat for a project that's complex, has that many players, and has that many different disciplines involved in it as well. Terminal project. We understand that you commissioned a study that has kind of generated a few ideas of how you see this project moving forward and what that is. That study had everything from renovations to additions to full new facilities. Understanding through the commission selection process to review that the selection has been to move forward with a full 100% new facility and completely reconstruct new modern day facility. And with that, you are hopeful to receive ATP funds as well. We do know that you had submitted your ATP fund request this last round, and unfortunately, we're not successful. Obviously, there is one more round of that left, but it is a very competitive process, so there are some challenges involved with that. That kind of leads me to the next point. Without the money, it's just an idea, right? So going into that next round of ATP fund, it's important that you have an application that can best position you guys to receive that funds. Allie Fields is our government affairs manager. She has worked with the government previously, and with her help and our aviation knowledge, we can kind of best position that application for you to receive those funds. However, with that all being said, there's no guarantee you're going to receive those funds from the ATP side. It is a very competitive application process, and your request is a pretty significant request. So that's a little bit of a challenge there. So with that, if ATP funds are not received, our thought is we want to approach this project more of a funding-driven approach. What I mean by that is you have an existing facility that's great. It really is a great facility. I understand there might be some skeletons in the closets from the MEP side. I know there's room that you guys are missing that you need additional room on, but I think maximizing the funding of it and right sizing the work is critical to getting you something that we can deliver on if that ATP funding does not happen. And what I mean by that is that there is what I'm hearing from Mike is that there has the challenge is flight training. There's not enough flight training. There's a lot of mechanicals are old and outdated. So, whether you receive if you don't receive the ATP funding, whether you do a larger project or a smaller project, funding is always going to be a concern. And that funding may have the ability to disrupt your program. So really what I think the process here is one, right size, and then two, look at the funding opportunities here. One great example I'd throw out there is there's other funding avenues that could be used for this project. Iowa has a great vertical infrastructure program for general aviation airports that they use funding for just this type of project. One concern is if you're outside the terminal footprint, any work done in another building may not be federally eligible. Well, Iowa State's program allows more eligibility. So one example of that would be that you could use that program to fund upgrades to the MEP on this, or maybe the possibility to build out flight training in the jet air hangar. The Iowa State funding would allow that to be a possibility. That would kind of address your concerns of space and also get what you need within this facility if that ATP funding approach doesn't happen. That's just one example of funding. There are some other avenues out there, but just kind of thinking a little more programmatic speaking, how do we get you a project that we can deliver on and not disrupt your entire program?
Okay, so what I would like to do is just spend a couple minutes in talking through the Runway 7 extension project that's in your CIP. So one of the things that we wanted to start with was just to tell you a little bit about how FAA's criteria for runway projects in general has really changed in recent years. It used to be that if a project was on your ALP, if it was in your master plan, the airport sponsor just had to say, hey, we're ready for the project, funding would come and off you go. Well, unfortunately, it's not that way anymore. FAA's budgets are tight. AIP funds don't go as far as they used to nationwide. So FAA is really requiring every runway project to be individually justified. So that's rehabs, that's extensions, that's widenings. Any project that you want to do for a runway has to be individually justified. So when you're talking about runway length, it used to be the criteria was that FAA would say, okay, the planes you have at your airport, how far are they capable of flying? We'll build you a runway to accommodate how far they're capable of flying. Well, today it's how far are they flying? They actually want to know what your city pairs are. Who is flying from Iowa City to where? Are they flying to the West Coast? Are they flying internationally? They want to know that so that they can right size the runway length in accordance with who is actually flying and to where here. So with that said, we believe that runway 7 extension in this climate with FAA is going to be difficult. Not impossible, but difficult. So CMT's full planning resources are available at your disposal to try to move this project forward. We understand that it's going to be a longer term project. And so as Brad was talking about up at the top of the presentation, sort of looking at your CIP as a program is really important because that runway project, that justification effort and the environmental that would come after it, it's going to take some time. So we want to make sure that while that project is going on, you're still addressing other needs on your airfield.
Can I ask?
Absolutely.
How does the length of the flight affect the length of the runway? Just because the fuel weighs more?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Okay.
And it's a little bit of a catch-22 because you ask yourself the question, well, if they're already flying to these destinations, why do you need more runway length?
And they won't come here if they can't land and take off.
Correct.
So
Correct.
we have occasionally get a Gulfstream in here. They use every inch of the runway.
Yeah, I bet. And so one of the things that FAA will allow you to do is take a look at some future plans. They'll let you look out about 5 years. They'll also let you work with your users to try to receive some sort of a letter of commitment. Let's say you have a user that's looking to upgrade their equipment. If they would be able to put that in writing to say, hey, you lengthen the runway, we will buy or we will use jet XYZ that needs all of that runway length to fly or not fly. So there are some tools in the toolkit to get you there. It's a hard process. They have not made it easy, and they're putting up more and more hurdles every day, unfortunately. So diving down a little bit deeper into the runway 7 extension, CMT has completed a number of runway extension projects at general aviation airports throughout the FAA central region. The 2 images at the bottom of the slide are Camdenton, Missouri, near the Lake of the Ozarks in central Missouri. It's about 1,000-foot runway extension that CMT was able to justify, complete the environmental assessment of, and then also construct, as you can see in the lower right. The upper right image represents range rings from Waukegan, which is a reliever airport outside of Chicago. So those represent both flight hours as well as nautical miles away from Waukegan. So that's as part of an effort that we're working on right now with FAA headquarters to try to justify additional runway length at this airport. It's been a long process. We are dealing with the highest levels of FAA. So we're dealing with Kent Duffy, their main planner in Washington, D.C. The runway length justifications actually go beyond just the airport district office, the regional office. They go all the way to headquarters now to Washington, D.C. So we have the resources, we have the experience to be able to help position this project to move forward, but it's going to be a difficult undertaking. And then the last fun fact related to CMT's relationship with the FAA is we have a Kansas City office that is currently in the process of relocating. FAA also has a Kansas City office that's in the process of relocating. Our CMT office is going to be located 1 floor above them in the new office that we're both occupying in downtown Kansas City.
Yeah, so it's kind of circling back to the beginning of the presentation, maximizing your CIP program. That's really what's important here. There's different funding avenues. There's push and pull of those funding paths that kind of have to look at the program from an entire program level, not just an individual project level. We'll be able to kind of bring that funding expertise to the table. Unparalleled depth, really the breadth of what we bring to the table. Obviously, the SOAR project, you see kind of variety of work we can bringing on our team members as well, Alliance Architects. They do aviation work nationally. They're well versed in a whole new facility construction that may be of interest here, or if we're doing a smart targeted project, they can bring that expertise to the table and provide that to you. And really the longevity piece of it, I wanted to speak to directly is, in 2015, the CMT had asked if I was willing to go ahead and start our Quad Cities office. So in 2015, I had gone out there to start our office solely by myself with the sole purpose of serving our Iowa clients better. With that, I'm proud to say it through that time period that the office has grown. We have four full-time irrigation staff members there now, in addition to other group members there as well. Currently, our facility, we're outgrowing it. We are actually looking to relocate to a new Bendorf office here in the near future. And because we're kind of bursting the seams, so to speak. So really, my point to that conversation is, one, we're here to serve Iowa. Two, we're not going anywhere. We're here for the long haul and really appreciate the opportunity you gave us with the solar project, and really just kind of want to grow that relationship and continue that forward. With that, that's what we have. So I appreciate it and thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
I have a question about some work you've done in the past, the Schaumburg terminal, Schaumburg, Illinois. You guys familiar with that?
Yes.
You are.
Yes,
A lot of us as pilots have been there to get lunch or dinner.
Pilot Pete's.
Pilot Pete's.
Mhm.
Can you reflect on that as how you did that with them and who paid for it? And, is something like that possible?
You want to take this one? You want me to take it?
Yeah, so I mean, another story of a real rebuild on top of an airport, right? And so Schaumburg also had the challenge of it's right in the flight path to O'Hare.
Right.
So we have, the rule of thumb is 90% of the effort, 10% of the money is on the planning, 10% of the effort, 90% of the money is in the construction. Many years in working on Schaumburg to be able to bring it to fruition. Able to get a longer compliant runway meeting FAA requirements. Similar story for Chicago Executive Powahki that went through. That was conversion of a private airport to a publicly owned airport. Really the opportunity there at Schaumburg was maximizing every square inch of available land. And so we also had environmental challenges that were within there. The funding that rolled through relative to Schaumburg was at a time period where Schaumburg is not a designated reliever airport, but it is a highly used airport. And so FAA, through a lot of convincing, even though relievers had special status in terms of being able to compete for discretionary money, Schaumburg didn't have that, but we worked with their community to work congressionally to be able to elevate the priority in that. That's not always the path, but sometimes that can be a pathway to be able to bring proper focus and priority from the FAA relative to, say, a runway extension. We still have to go through the justification elements of that, and that's a challenging environment. But Congress, the administration working with the legislature is a component that is getting the money as Travis had up there. Without money, it's just an idea. That's in our DNA where we've really helped clients be able to find the money.
Was the restaurant business part of the funding for this project?
That I don't know. I wasn't close enough to know that. I hope so. That's great.
Yeah, well, we're thinking of all kinds of ways we could
Yes.
save for upgrade.
Some people are.
Some people don't like the idea of an airport restaurant for some reason.
You see a lot of them go away. They used to be everywhere. Like many airports had them, and unfortunately, you have seen them kind of disappear over the years.
I have a question. With all of these things that you have going all over, will we be competing for funding in Iowa with other people that you're also representing in Iowa? And what happens on that?
So Short answer is no. I mean, we're here to serve you, right? Every project, regardless of what client is a project, right? You are owed a certain amount of funding from an entitlement perspective, and then you go out and compete for discretionary funding as well. And then there's also kind of layer in some of the Iowa state funding that they have as well. All that is really project by project basis and based on justification, right? You have to provide the proper justification for you to receive that funding. You're not, while you are indirectly competing with other projects throughout the state, it's all based on the justification and need of your project. And that's really the key piece of it. If that makes sense.
The other thing I would share is that state, region, FAA region, and then national. What we really try to do with our clients is not just work within the same pool of resources, but going to the region, going to headquarters and getting more money into the state. So that's our strategy on really trying to advance and making the pie bigger.
I want to step back to Warren's question a little bit, and make sure I understand what, because there are a lot of new terminal projects that are in your resume, as it were. Schaumburg was mentioned, Dubuque was mentioned, Ames was mentioned. So when looking at the Schaumburg example, you said I think you said you went the congressional route. So was it earmarked in a spending bill? Was it that you worked with local congressional representatives to get that?
Yeah,
in there, what was the
Sure.
what was the game there?
Yeah, so when I was answering the question, I was talking larger airport overall. I'll be honest, the terminal building itself, I don't want to speak out of turn as to how the funding was. Congressional earmarks at that point in time were quite common, right? And so you still had to go and compete for that. But honestly, a lot of airports didn't. And so, I'll use another example. It happens to be in the Chicago area, the DuPage Airport. That was it was a letter of intent, right? And so we were involved in building that generated in the 1980s, $50 million in federal money, which was significant. The key is you're likely, if you're going after federal money, it's going to have to be eligible, which it is. But you're going to have to go some sort of priority route through legislature to be able to elevate that overall. Earmarks are, there's, it's now called congressionally directed spending. Yes.
Look, you're talking to a political background, so whatever.
So same thing, but it is something that FAA has now put limits on how much that is, but we're not talking tens and hundreds of millions of dollars, right, for this. So Allie, picture of her up there, she is a previous congressional staffer and works still very much in Washington, D.C. Something I learned, we have worked years, decades in trying to secure funding. We onboarded Allie about probably 6-7 years ago, something like that. I didn't understand the true depth of the staffer relationship, the staffer network, and how deep it is. And so that has been just a further dynamic. It's going to require FAA headquarters visits and communications. You got to go the technical route. And what I always say is you go from the bottom up on the technical route and you go from the top down, and hopefully those two meet somehow.
Yeah, and speaking about Schaumburg, in the mid-90s when that project was being done, Schaumburg was one of the first airports that CMT had heard of that actually had a lobbyist. The village of Schaumburg had a lobbyist both in Springfield, Illinois and Washington, D.C. And that was pretty uncommon back at that time. So I don't know, I was very, very early in my career at that point, but my understanding is that was a pretty integral part of that whole political strategy. That was an untapped resource at that point for many airports.
Yeah, and so we will never say, hey, we can get you money, right? You can't say that, and it's not true if you did say it. We can absolutely show that we've been able to be successful with airports in the past. And we can also show that the priority it has within CMT, we actually have a government, we're a firm of 500, and we got a governmental affairs team. And that's how important we believe. And you look at the entire life cycle of a facility, usually one of the big tripwires, you get through all the planning and you're ready to start the design and get into construction and you can't get the money. And that's where a lot of consultants will go, well, let us know and you know, we'll be right here ready to start the design process when that happens. We actually come along beside our clients and bring resources like Ally. I've actually got a lot of experience in it. Craig has done a lot as well too. And so it is a differentiator and it's in our DNA. We're to be able to advocate and find money.
Yeah, with that, with Ally, she, you know, her background being a staffer at a congressional level, she has an inherent knowledge of how you can kind of best position yourself in these applications, right? As Brad mentioned, she goes to DC on behalf of our clients and tries to try to move the process along that needs to be moved along. And she's, you know, to your point, Brad, she's been great to kind of bring on board and help on that funding piece of thing and really kind of elevate what we do from a funding perspective.
And she's a Quad City native.
That's true.
Thank you.
Thank you and good luck. I know it's a long night.
Yeah, you guys are a long night.
I always say, we were going into an interview and it was a Friday before a holiday and we were the last interview on Friday afternoon. And one of our interview teaming partners said, hey, let's take in some Red Bull. And I kid you not, we brought in a cooler and we set it down in the middle of the table. We kind of knew the airport already, so we had a little license. And they were all looking at it. Nobody opened it up. And they said, finally somebody goes, well, what's in there? And so we opened it up. And they were all like, they all chuckled and thought it was funny, but nobody took one. And so it just kind of sat there. Well, after about 3 or 4 minutes, finally somebody goes, oh, heck with it. So good luck to you all.
Thanks a lot.
Thank
Very
you.
much. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming out.
Appreciate it.
Yep, good to see you again. Absolutely.
Appreciate it. Good to see you.
Good luck tonight, guys.
Thanks.
You guys
Thanks, you.
Bye.
We'll get a picture with Lauren and.
Take care. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Not that we're gonna teach them.
Why do I say that? Where's it?
That's
true. It's 0.04, not 0.0.
Chris?
Yeah.
Like whenever they're talking about the legislature and Peter saying that he would support us because he has a team over there. I didn't even know.
Yeah,
But he has 3 people there.
yeah. Yeah. I know. I talked to one of them already.
Who?
I don't remember, but
Ian?
I don't remember exactly. You're talking
Is that
about.
a timer or anything?
For 3 days.
Okay.
It's bad.
Is
I'm
that a timer or
bad.
anything?
But,
Did we hold them 30 minutes?
That's it to you.
she reached out to,
Is there a few?
that was
So yeah,
about
Leanne.
25 minutes.
what's the deal?
We spent about 10 at the beginning, so.
Okay,
What's up?
I was just wondering if you needed a timer or anything to keep track, so,
No, I was,
okay. Just.
this isn't hard sciences.
Did I
If we get it wrong, it doesn't blow up, it's okay.
didn't want one complaining that they had more time.
No, they're generally pretty okay.
Okay.
They're not sitting down there with stopwatches, so
So it is Leanne then, because she's the only female.
I think so. Yeah, I got her involved with the ATP program.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yep, let's do it.
Yeah, I just needed one.
No.
Yes, he's been sick ever since. Just how it goes. He has not stopped having. That's right. And then you're gonna get it. Yeah, we got it, yeah.
But then you'll end up not as many days of school because they've already got inspectors going around.
That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, you got
Which side you want to, okay, cool. I got west now, like it's not.
You guys gave us, you gave me a, you gave you a flash. We're just here to facilitate as well.
That's right. He's the one who figure it out. Yeah. I'm trying to decide. This meeting is being recorded, so it's on record, but I'm trying to decide how much I want to spend time with my mother-in-law next Saturday. And whether I want to go to the game. Make sure we leave that.
This should be a big walkthrough of the Iowa City, City Bible City Commissions.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no. How much more?
It just.
The big league. I went to the city hall.
Yeah.
Here, this will be right there. Oh.
He's our.
I think
Here.
All right.
Yeah.
It's like, might as well go to our table.
Yeah.
Yeah, holy.
You just need it right there.
Well,
Ready? Take it away.
All right, cool. I get to start this out. So we are all very grateful to be here. My name is Ron Retzel. I'm principal and owner of Bolton and Mink. I lead our aviation group and we both value and appreciate being your existing consultant. We'll do a little introduction. So Carl.
I'm Carl Byers. I think most of you know me, but I've been doing airport engineering in Iowa for 35 years. I was an Air Force pilot before that. It's retired military. And I've been working this airport, and the first project was in '89 at this airport. So.
Garrett Jacobs, I'm an aviation project engineer in Bolton Mink. Been with Bolton Mink about 3 years now, but my professional career for the last 5 years has been focused around aviation engineering. Been helping Carl with a lot of the designs out here ever since I started and look forward to doing more.
Paul.
I'm Paul Ansel. I started my career as a Marine helicopter pilot for 21 years, to include presidential pilot for Presidents Clinton and President Bush in Marine One. Retired and went to work for the Marine Corps at airports, and then moved to Colorado and was an airport director at a very large airport in Colorado, and I'm their strategic business director.
And what I'd like to point out on this slide, there's a lot going on this slide and that, but what I want to show is the depth of the deep bench that we have here to support Carl. You see Carl every month and everything else, but we want you to know that he's got a deep bench behind you. He's got an entire funding group that supports him as well. We've got dedicated staff just for funding to kind of look outside the box. And we've talked a lot already about other funding opportunities, not only for the airport, but for the terminal building and that type of thing. So we'll get into that here in our presentation. The planning, design, and construction, you know, we've got a really deep bench on that with support for Kyle, both engineers and surveyors and support engineers. And then with Paul, you've heard about his background and everything else, and he's our strategic coordinator, but he's also key of service that we offered this year now is airport development. Okay, we found that type of service, there's a lot of GA airports that are looking at how to generate more revenue, how to cover the increase in costs and that type of thing. That's going to be Paul's expertise, and he'll present more about that here in our presentation. And then we got another team for the terminal building. We can still have Gensler as part of our team that put together the whole plan and that. But we also have had some discussions about, okay, we've had funding for the new terminal building. We discussed that, but we also want to discuss, okay, what are we going to do with our existing terminal building? So we'll get into that here as well. So with that, we'll talk projects.
So just kind of going down the list here, we'll start with the rehabilitation projects. your runway pavements score very well in terms of PCI. In fact, runway 725 and 1230 both score PCI. It's on a rating scale of 0 to 100 of a 97, which is fantastic. Now, how do you preserve that? You do rehabilitation projects, joint sealing projects, patching where it's required. I know one of the eye-opening things here is the intersection. So what do you do there? Well, we've had recent success with these couple projects, limiting the closure of the two runways to just hours rather than allowing the contractor to work there for a few days. It's been pretty reliable, and we would look to do that same kind of thing here. Other rehab projects for the proposed the taxi lanes, you've got both HMA and concrete pavement over there, and those areas score a much lower PCI, and those justify either major rehabilitation or in some cases reconstruction. The main thing there when we go to get into design is going to be looking at the existing pavement section to determine is a mill and overlay an option, or do we have to do a full depth reclaim? The big pinch point there is maintaining existing entrances to the T-hangers. Something to keep in mind. The apron expansion, Mike and I just talked about this a couple of days ago. You know, your base aircraft is extremely high, and combine that with your transient aircraft, you more than justify the apron space that is shown here, and that would be that's shown on the ALP. It's a super high. I mean, we're talking 20. I think it was about 23,000 or 26,000 square yards of apron space, and that's a ton.
So it's 3 times what you have now.
Right. So additional parking just works out better for everybody. Proposed runway extension. So preceding this, we would have to do an environmental assessment which looks at the impacts of a project like that. So what do you gain out of it? It's about 213, 215 feet of available runway length in that direction while keeping the highway in mind, making sure that you've got the clearance for your approach surfaces. And then the stopway both increases your overall declared distances for 725. We'll get into the hangar development, but the last area for the proposed solar farm that I want to talk about is the use you've got shown for your BIL funds in your capital plan is the quickest way you're going to be able to get that. I know it's pretty high up, pretty high priority, being self-sufficient. It's not something that you're typically going to get any AIP funding from the FAA. Maybe it's something that the Iowa DOT would participate in, but this is going to be the best opportunity to have it on the CIP right now to accomplish that project. The last thing on here we've got is the terminal, and I'll kind of leave that again as we're going to get more in depth here in a little bit. But what do these projects overall provide for the airport? It's safe and efficient use, potential larger aircraft that you want coming in here, and I mean, overall, just an upkeep and less expenditure later on. The more you can preserve your pavement now, the less you're going to have to spend later. Your PCI is not going to go down nearly as fast. With that, turn it over to Paul. Oh, sorry, Carl.
The first project on your project list was the new terminal. And I know we went through the study, we went through everything from do nothing to minor expansions to major expansions. And at the end of the day, based on all the surveys that were done, the decision was made to go with the new terminal. And we've tried twice to go after the federal funding under the ATP funding. And I know that if this has been discussed at the commission, so I'm not telling you anything new. It's basically come out that the ATP funding for general aviation airports is basically limited to filling out a funding project. I'll say you get 6 million of it, you need another 800,000 to finish it. They would fund that type of project. So although it's the first project, and we have teamed with Gensler, and if a new project, or when, we'll say not if, but when a new terminal is built, we've teamed with them. They know your airport. They've listened to what everybody wants. And so we would work with them. They're one of the largest architectural firms in the world, and they do a lot of airport work. And so we're very comfortable having teamed with them when a new terminal is built. That said, we know that in the next few years with that ATP funding is going to be running out, and it's not likely we're going to get the whole thing funded. I won't say 0%, but it's not high on the FAA chance to get that done. So then we do have to, we'll have to look at how can we fund it. And I think that belongs to communications. I think we're going to have to at least look beyond that. I know that, this terminal, there'll be some things we can do to it, but it's not going to, still function as it should and give you what you need for 30, 40 years. We're still going to have to keep looking and so we're going to have to look at how do we put together a team of stakeholders. And I don't know what the appetite is for having some people come in, like say the university or the city more playing, or I don't know if the county would ever involve in something like this or corporations, but we would have to work with the local community to say, how do we put together a funding package so that we can get this done? And then maybe if we're getting close, then maybe we can see if the FAA can help round that out. Now, that said, that's not going to happen overnight. And you have some real needs in this terminal. Next slide. Yeah. Okay. It came out again that, we've looked at the plans, we've looked at the systems, and your HVAC system is inefficient. There's a lot of improvements we can make to lights. The city and the airport are very proactive in terms of being energy efficient and watch your money and control your costs. I mean, you're doing that with your solar. That's a great first step. What we would like to do is make improvements to the terminal so that you're not having to use all of that solar on the net metering just to power and heat and cool a terminal that is the HVAC and the building envelope are eating it all up. So there are a lot of things. For this, we've teamed with IMEG. IMEG is one of the largest ME firms in the world, and they do a lot of airport work. We've teamed with them on 3 projects at the Des Moines Airport and been very pleased with the work that they've done. They understand aviation. They understand things like we would look at, what can we do at reasonable cost benefit for HVAC systems. I know some of your windows are newer than others, but what could we do to tighten up the building? I was here last week and it was howling away with the wind that day. It was really windy. So that's an obvious sign that you need some things to be done there to help tighten it up. So those are the type of things that we will look with. And we would have to look at how would we fund something like that? Is that something that maybe the state would fund, help us be more energy efficient, help control your costs so that the money that you're getting out of that solar, that can go to other areas and save you more money. And the FBO expansion, I know at one point in time you're talking about they need the room. I talked to Matt here. I said, one time you were talking about expanding onto this terminal. I know there are concerns with the historical aspect of the exterior. So that I know that you had mentioned that you're probably more likely to want to expand on the side, your hangar or something like that. But again, it's something that we can work with the airport and with the FBO to determine what's the most cost efficient way for them to do that without doing anything to this terminal that harms the architectural influence or the historical influence of the terminal. And then as we're bringing this terminal to get us through, then we would be working again on putting together a team to how we can fund to ultimately replace it with a new terminal. I'm going to turn it over to Paul now to talk about.
Great, thanks, Carl. So I think my job is the most exciting job of everybody's because I get to talk about how an airport grows and how we can help you grow your airport and develop it. So one of the very first indicators from a development standpoint is what's the FBO doing, right? And that's a bellwether and tells you, is the airport growing or is it receding? And with the airport FBO wanting to expand, that tells you there's a demand, there's a requirement. So that's sort of a, check the box. That's a great first start. What does development do for this airport? Long-term recurring revenue. So if you get a hangar that's built and you sign a 30, 40 or 50-year lease with annual increases that match or keep up with inflation, you're getting long-term recurring revenue. Why is that important? If you're not developing new areas on the airport, you're falling behind because costs, construction, electricity, pavement maintenance, salaries, insurance, all those things are going up steadily. And there's only so much rent you're collecting on your existing buildings. So we look at ways to get those long-term recurring revenues to the airport to help self-sustain the airport. The other thing we have that most other people don't have is we have a vast network of developers, hangar builders, people who want to come nationwide and build hangars where there's a need and where there's a desire. So having an airport director that wants to build, having an airport commission that says, hey, we need to develop to make our airport self-sustaining, that's very attractive to someone who wants to build hangars, because I've been in this a long time. I did, after I got out of the Marine Corps, I worked for the Marine Corps at an air base, and we brought in two $50 million hangars. It took me 7 years to do because of the process. New hangars, when you come to an airport like this, there's a process that takes long, and you have to follow it and you have to stay on top of it. And if you just go, yeah, it looks like things are moving forward, and then you kind of let off the gas pedal, the development won't happen. So we want to stay on top of it using our vast array of builders, developers, and people who can help us get those buildings built and bring them out here to the airport. Next slide. So this is exciting stuff because this was a concept that our team put together, and it's kind of a proposed vision. I'm gonna use this board because it doesn't work on thing. You have an area over here on the east side for some box hangars and some corporate hangars. And over here on the west side, we call this a condo type development, right? It's obviously market driven. So you need to find out where the market is, who's buying and building and renting hangars. But it gives you the opportunity to build some larger corporate hangars, some smaller box hangars, and possibly even some T hangars. And that way you're hitting all those requirements, and people who want to build hangars, you're finding out what they want. Does it fit with the vision of the commission? You may not want T hangars, you may not want corporate hangars. So it's kind of a collaborative effort working together. And to be able to put that all together is exciting. Again, I brought in hangars in the Marine Corps base for V-22 squadrons. When I took over as the airport director in Colorado at the third, at the time it was the fourth busiest airport, now it's the third busiest airport. We had an area of land much like this east side here. Planned it, took me 2.5 years to get it started, and the last 4 years I was at that airport, we're the fastest growing airport in the state. So fuel sales, which is important for the airport, important for the FBO, growth, operations, all are trending upwards, which is where you want to be, because that helps you be a successful, self-sustaining airport. How do we do that? So how do we get that strategic growth? Again, strategic is important because we don't just want to throw spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks. We want to have a vision. We want to have the demand, what the commission wants for the airport. And that starts with your primary guiding documents, so your rules and regs and your minimum standards. I read your minimum standards from 2019. Very good start. It has the limits or the requirements for different types of buildings. So you're setting the groundwork for success. A lot of airports this size don't even have those, or they have them, they're from 1990, 1988, and they're not current. So you're already ahead of the game when it comes to your guiding documents. Then you need infrastructure support. So how do we build this whole area, right? You've got this run out area has already been built, and then you've got a taxiway that needs to be built here to connect it. You also need those roads, taxiways, access to the site, access to the runways. So working with our teams, our planners and designers and our engineers, we'll lay out a strategic plan that allows the builders to look at it and go, okay, I know what I can do. I know that the utilities are in place, ready to go, and we allow those to build forward. The last thing is excitement. As you can tell, I get kind of excited about development, right? It's just a fun thing to do. So we find out where the demand is here, working with the FBO, say, okay, who's the companies that want to be here? How can we support the university? How can we support the city? We go to national conferences and talk about Iowa City and say, hey, we have the opportunity, find those businesses that want to come here, work with the commission and bring those partners to the table. And that's how we get it all started. I think that's Carl.
And we want to emphasize that any growth like this, we're not trying to turn you into Cedar Rapids. We understand there's also concern that growth, what would that do to noise? Would that, we don't want 3 times as many aircraft coming in and everything. And Paul and I, and we all talked about that. And the genesis of that is that the type of aircraft, that type of development we would look for would be ones that they don't fly in and out. They hang here, they're based here, and they have a business where they might fly somewhere and then come back. Or corporate aircraft, which are quieter, much quieter than they have been in the past. We understand we don't want to, we're not trying to, I know that Cedar Rapids is doing a development area at their airport, and we're not trying to match that. We would be looking at entities that would be more attractive to this size of airport where they don't have to call tower, they don't have to, it's not a controlled airport. They have a little bit more freedom, a little bit more flexibility, and that want to be here in Iowa City for whatever reason. That's the type of people that we would look at attracting. We don't want to have everybody that lives on there's residential around here, so we don't want the noise level to go up, and that would be something that we'd be looking at. The frequency of flight and the type of aircraft that would be, again, they're typically quieter, they're more fuel efficient. And then growth is not just for growth's sake. It's that we understand that having cash reserves and being financially independent and financially sustainable and everything is important to the airport. And it's important to present to, to maintain that and to grow that. And as Paul already noted, that as costs go up of maintenance and keeping your everything you already have up to speed, this development would allow you to have much more income coming in. And again, it would be targeted to not change the character of the airport, but just to add on to your ability to be self-sustaining.
And Paul, question for you. So funding those hangars, sounds like you're talking about finding corporate entities or individuals who have some means to actually pay for building the hangars, and that they would have a lease that they would own it for the next 30 or 40 years or whatever, and then it would revert to the airport.
That's correct. So again, it's market driven, right? So there's 1,000 ways to skin the cat, but your bottom line is you want to find a company that if the city/airports provides the infrastructure, right? You have to have an access road, you have to electric and gas and water and sewer. When those things are in, then it's pretty easy to find people who basically say, oh, I just need a leasehold, sign a 30-year lease or whatever the commission is comfortable with, and tie that to the size of the hangar, right? And the cost. And then you have a leasehold that goes on and they pay for, sometimes they lease it out themselves, sometimes they build it and sell it. There's multiple ways to craft that deal.
We have quite a waiting list for these teams.
I love waiting lists.
How many do we have on the list now?
Entry wise, there's about 30.
And these are mostly people who are looking for T.
Mostly T hangars. There's a couple of box hangar type airplanes, but I'm sure Matt has a collection of names of people that would like to have jet space or larger aircraft.
Could the T hangars be in any other place instead of going into the cropland? Let me rephrase that. The Danes have the hill. And they just went through a big fight about the sale of the land on that south side. And they spent a lot of money trying to fight it. And there was a lot of publicity and things about that too. So if we want to take their cropland that they're using right now, I think we would get an awful lot of negative.
Right. We get, this is actually from your airport layout plan. And so all of this is on existing airport property. We're not looking at buying new land.
We own that.
We already own.
But isn't that leased right now for crop?
Right.
Yes.
It's leased for crop.
So
We own it.
we own it, yeah.
Right.
But
You wouldn't be taking land or anything that anyone owns. They would maybe be leased less for property.
It would be cheap.
They rezoned, they were, the people who own the
they
land up
properly
next to
zoned.
Danes were wanting to rezone it to more industrial use where it's not that right now. And that's what the big thing was
Because they
recently,
want to make the whole hill become a
Yeah, the
parkland,
Danes
so they
are-
didn't want,
giving it as parkland to the city eventually.
and then to have the airplanes
Mhm.
be up close against what they're considering parkland.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
just saying there might be some negative
Yeah.
Right.
things
Yeah,
about
but
that.
bottom line, we'd be within our rights to use that
Oh, yeah.
one for something else and.
But it's also
I'm
like
wondering
you need
if
to
it-
talk
if
about.
on the other side, if we have that many people for hangars,
Yeah.
would it be better to fill in with the smaller hangars on the other side first?
Correct, but we should also talk about a buffer then from parkland.
Yeah.
What is,
Yeah,
what would
yeah.
that?
Very limited space,
Yeah.
around this. We could put in that taxiway, you could put a few, 2, maybe 3 box hangars.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
okay.
correct.
I was
We have
just-
4 or 5 T hangers and 2 corporate back there. That's
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is,
I was
that's
wondering.
where working with the commission, you know, I come down and I sit there, I've got a proposal to build 60 T hangers, and your guys are like, that's 60 small planes doing touch and goes, there's more noise. We're not really into that. Okay. Let's go to the other. Then I come in with a corporate company that wants to build for a, you know, Gulfstream or something like that, or a small jet. Okay, how do we support that? Does it work for your vision? How does it work in the long-term plan of the airport? So it's a collaborative effort between us, the builders, and ultimately the airport and the airport commission on what makes you happy. Because trust me, I could get T hangers all day long. They're cheap, they're easy to build, but they bring some headaches to the airport commission with the extra noise and the stuff. So it's a balancing act that you want to work with and say, you know, instead of small T hangers, you build box hangers and you put 2, maybe 3 hangers in there. Leases are better, long-term rents are better. The airport looking at it looks better. And so when you know, there's ways to skin that cat to make it palatable for both the commission and the people who live on the outside, you know, deal with
And
the
I,
airport.
'cause I know there was a lot of complaints about the noise while the University Hospital was down, and we had to have all the extra helicopters going through.
Yeah, we're not telling you what to do. We're saying, you know, we would work with, it's your airport, and it's what you
These
want.
people
but
who are on
we
the
would-
hangers.
We would bring off, we would
I
bring
know the
opportunity.
neighborhood representative doesn't fly,
Right.
he gets motion sickness, okay, so I'm just bringing up some of the other points.
What I did at another airport, so not only was I the airport director at Rocky Mountain in Colorado, but Greeley, another large GA airport up in north of Denver. But they hired Bolton and ourselves to develop some stuff. And we actually can create and work with you on kind of like a noise spreadsheet, right? So bring in 10 single engine Cessnas, doing touch and goes. There's some calculus we can do and go, this is kind of the noise irritant factor. Vice, what Carl said is, what we really want is a jet that kind of parks out here, picks up its passengers, goes to California, spends 3 days, comes back and lands, and pays rents for 30, 40 years. That's the goal. And we're gonna have a mix, because you have a waiting list, you want to support everybody, but it is a collaborative effort between all of us to make that happen.
I want to ask about the runway 7 extension. I believe I read in your book that there's some potential problem with that.
Well, the 213 feet, you can do that and maintain your required airspaces and your object free areas and your safety areas. That last portion is about 700 some feet.
Yeah.
And that is technically, it's almost like a paved overrun. It's more so that when you're taking off to the west, your accelerate stop distance, it increases that. So there's more safety for larger aircraft that use quite a bit of runway.
Sure.
So, you know, it allows you to accelerate to either a go, no go decision and then either get stopped or continue your takeoff. And by having that, it does increase that. That sometimes is not even a full strength pavement. It's enough so that if somebody has to do an emergency stop, it will stop and you can use it occasionally. It's not meant for, it would not be used for lanes. It's not going to push the threshold out to the end of that 700 feet. Now, I know there's enough pilots in here that if you've got pavement on that end and you're taking off the other direction, it may not be legal runway, but I know people would use that. They backseat at the end and use that. But
Never admit.
but
I don't think I.
but that said, and there's some question, and it said in the master plans that there's some question of how that's treated, how much it would be. There's a possibility that might be limited eligibility from the FAA for that 700. The 213, I don't think is a problem, but that last 700 could potentially be. But it's a safety issue, and they like to fund safety issue things.
And would that 213 feet make a significant difference if you're flying a Gulfstream in here or something?
The thing it does is it gets the airport above the 5,000 foot magic number.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
It goes like 5,015 feet or something like that. So it pushes it just past 5,000.
People see.
And
they say, okay.
One good thing that's happened that works both ways is that Navia essentially it's an app for runway performance. So like so it actually calculates down to the foot and tells us how much weight fuel we can take or whatever.
Yeah.
And not just to take off, but to take off, lose an engine, and still climb out, miss all the obstacles, all that kind of stuff. Like it's pretty cool, but something they're supposed to spend a lot of time doing now does automatically quickly, which is awesome. But that helps from the standpoint of like, yeah, now 4,999 feet is part of the calculation. So you might have people that might work. And less concerned about the 5,000 foot number. But then the other advantage is every foot you can get also helps, so now 5,206 feet matters, whatever it is.
And then it could be wet.
And it could be wet, and that's the thing, is you put in these other calculations and
Or
everything.
let's say carry just that little bit extra fuel that can get you.
Yeah.
To this.
And the 780 foot extension, that wouldn't be official landing distance.
It wouldn't be landing distance, it's really more for accelerate stop.
Okay.
So, yeah, it would push it, and I know that
Gulf
sometimes.
region, you say, oh, they have this extra 700, you might need it, might make you feel better.
Well, you couldn't use it in your calculations, but it might give you a little comfort factor, that's true,
At the very least, it gives you paved surface to actually have braking action on that's not grass before you hit the highway.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah, so it's true.
We're not going to build midway here.
They overrun there too.
Do you have an example of like a airport our size that's been successful with finding new revenue streams? Because I know like Greeley's pretty close to Denver.
Yeah.
So is there, I guess I was wondering if you have any, not like specific like what they did, but just like airport success stories similar to Iowa City.
So Rocky Mountain is where I was the director. We brought in an FBO, we only had one. Then we brought in Pilatus aircraft, the PC-12, PC-24, their completion center. So I got that lease signed. Then we, just before I left there, we signed another lease with they're going to build an MRO for Gulfstream. So again, once you kind of set, and the hardest part, what took so long to get started, is there was no infrastructure on that side of the airfield. The north side was pretty much full, almost like this, right? And you got a few little pockets, and I signed a few small box hanger, build 6 box hangers in this little corner here. But real growth was putting the infrastructure in. So we had to move a road, we had to build a taxiway, all that stuff. So that was accomplished. Greeley's doing the same thing. They had a section of land almost exactly like this, maybe a little bit bigger. And they hired us to bring in JBS, it's either the first or second world's largest food manufacturing. They have all kinds of different brands, but we're coordinating, managing that project, bringing that corporate hangar. At the same time, we're doing a FBO deal to support this new growth on that side. And at the same time, it just started kind of the last 2 weeks. Once people hear about an airport that's growing and wants to grow and is actually signing leases, your phone doesn't stop ringing. So now I'm just started. I sent them a lease template 2 days ago. Said, hey, here's our lease template. Let's start looking at the lease. Let's figure out what to do. So it's I don't say it's very simple, but it's almost a causation where once you start signing leases and people see bulldozers out, everyone's like, oh, I want to build. And the phone calls come in. Did that answer your question?
Sort of, yeah.
Okay.
But what's attractive about that, particularly about Greeley and particularly about Iowa City versus Cedar Rapids, is that Iowa City does not have commercial airspace, nor commercial air traffic. And that's very attractive to corporate America.
I think my point was more that Greeley and Rocky Mountain have a very large population center that's attractive to corporations.
Right.
So I was more interested in if there's sort of where Bolton Main's found these revenue streams for airports the size of Iowa City or with the population density of Iowa City, because like BAE and Collins are going to rely on Cedar Rapids because they're going to develop the infrastructure and they have the runways.
Yeah.
Whereas like,
I don't think we're going to rely on our firm to have to speak to a corporation and have them. Or such a thing.
No. I was just wondering if there's like, there was like a,
Yeah.
Mason City is like, oh yeah, well, they had success and not exact examples, but just like.
Right, it's all a matter of what you're working with, what you have in your current community.
Yeah.
And then how we can attract other people to build here, right? That's where you come. So create what you have, right? And then you package it.
Yep.
And then you go on and sell.
Mhm.
Right, that's it, whether you're in Iowa City or whether you're a Rocky Mountain.
Sure,
It's the
yeah.
process,
Mhm.
right?
I think Ankeny might be a good example where they've started developing in the last maybe 10 years along their Crosswind runway, and they've got a hangar going up right now that I've been watching for the last couple months. But I mean, after they get that done, they're going to kind of run out of space too. I haven't looked a whole lot at their ALP, but they're going to be in a very similar situation where they're going to have to look at other areas to expand. They've got space, got plenty of space. But I mean, Ankeny's we're about 70,000, I think, 80,000. So I mean, Iowa City is 60, 70, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But yes, similar kind of deal, where they're completing one area and they're going to have to start looking elsewhere, which is more or less what's going on here.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
In the interest of time, I think we should probably wrap this up. Any last questions?
Well, we want to, again, thank you for the opportunity to visit with you, and I've been working here since this was when I got out of the Air Force active duty, this was my first airport project. We rehabbed 735. And I've been working here it was my first airport. I hope I get to the opportunity to keep working here. I know that some people may mention that I'm getting to the point where in the next few years, I may not be working full time, but I have talked to the company and they've said that, the airports that you really want to stay working with, the ones that you like and the ones that I have a little bit of ownership with, that this is one that we would want to do. And that if anything pops up, I'm 30 minutes away. I can be here in 30 minutes. And you're going to be seeing the person that's going to be responsible, is going to be the person showing. So again, we really thank you for the opportunity, and we hope that you select us. We can continue to work with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We'd like to keep offering for you guys to keep this and kind of look at the vision and everything else. So is that okay?
That'd be great. Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. So. Here, they have the handouts.
Yes.
Okay.
You're gonna keep it, right?
Keep that.
Good, thank you.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
That was a good point. I mean, I think so. I mean, with the history of the city vote, desiring to close the airport. It's not that it was a recent discussion, but it's been a discussion.
At the same time, the airport's been here longer.
No, that's true. They might have a little bit more screw. They might like this.
They are getting older, and it's getting closer to.
Yeah.
But so it would cost to bring in the roads and bring in all of that kind of stuff too, before you could even do hangars.
Yeah, that would be
So that'd be real expensive.
Yeah, but I mean, you have to spend money to make money, and that's just.
Yeah.
I mean, we just, I don't think that we've had a serious discussion about developing outside of the. normal.
We've been afraid of.
That's what I was hoping they'd answer, but I didn't really get quite a thing.
I'll turn to Michael next. All right.
Sure.
So
Didn't want to cut off conversation if you guys
Sorry.
are good.
You need a deliberation period.
there's going to be one after
There's-
this.
Okay.
Because I have some questions.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm not, if you look at the agenda, it says engineering interviews and motion to select preferred firm. I don't think. I don't think we're gonna go A and skip all the letters and go to Z.
I thought the next one on there was like, I thought it was gonna be all the interviews and like,
There's gonna be a lot of discussion before.
Have you set up on this end and?
Yeah, I hope. Oh, you're so probably.
Yeah, he's in the for a while. He had a long day. He had this. We might be trying out for that. He's like amazing. It's just like we have, we divide it. Yeah, he's okay.
We go on, brother.
Yeah, go.
PDF is up and live. I will give this to whoever wants it.
Oh, you can take it. I always goof those things up. Like, how did we get to the end? It started yet. So.
Ready? Ready? Take her away.
Okay, thanks. Well, we really appreciate this opportunity. Our teams are very excited about this airport. And we're gonna do quick introductions. You know, you have our SOQ, so there's information in there that if you have questions about that, we'd be happy to answer that as well. Excuse me. My name's Eric Johnson. I'm the airport division manager with Kirk and Michael. And we've been in Urbandale area for going on 60 years, where we've served the Iowa aviation community as well as the Iowa DOT aviation office. We're pretty excited. We're going to be opening a Cedar Rapids office soon. We've got an engineer already hired, so we're excited about that. We're a standalone aviation team, and I've listed some of our people here, and they're also in your SOQ. Our certified construction aviation team for all our Iowa airport projects out of our Urbandale office, and they all meet or exceed the FAA's requirements for construction, testing and observation. I'm also a longtime private pilot. I soloed when I was 16, so I have a real passion for aviation and have an aircraft as well. So was it just a couple years ago that I soloed? Anyway, but I'd like to introduce Keith here. Have him tell a little bit.
Good evening, folks. Keith Gaspari with KLJ. If fortunate enough to serve Iowa City, I'll serve as your client relationship manager. My experience dates back to the spring of 1989, and in a number of roles and a number of airports. And so about 34 years with airport operations, maintenance, and administration, capital development. And almost a year now with KLJ as a senior aviation advisor and planner. So I'm on the other side of the airport fence. But and then I moved to Waterloo in 14. Been with Waterloo and KLJ since then. But also my relationship with Michael on the IPAA, or Iowa Public Airports Association Executive Board. So it'll be a real privilege to work with him in this capacity. So looking forward to potentially working with you folks in the near-term future.
Yeah, I'm Nathan Compton with ISG. I'm a senior architect there, and I'm up in the Waterloo area. I've got over 20 years of experience in the field of architecture, and our firm has a pretty wide range of experience in lots of different kinds of architecture, but that includes aviation and in historic preservation. So excited to be here.
Then one person, again, we wanted to be mindful of everyone's time, so we just want to kind of have a core group here. Our solar expert, Jeff Morrissey, with Morrissey Engineering. We have a master agreement for 24 years with them, doing all kinds of different airport lighting, electrical projects as well.
And I'm Paul Speed. I'm a civil engineer with LT Leon Associates. I've been there about 12 years. The company is a DBE civil engineering firm focused on water resources. We're based out of Des Moines. Louis Leon, the owner of the company, is a graduate in town from the University of Iowa. I won't tell you where I went to school, but we've been working with airports for about 8 years. And recently we've been working at the Des Moines Airport, and we're excited to be part of the team.
Great.
And that's our comprehensive team. We wanted to make sure we studied your projects thoroughly and then bring a good team of experts around to help maneuver through all the projects. So one thing we did as a team, we decided to take a look and see, what kind of activity you folks had here. And we were really amazed at the number of jet operations. And this is a summary of your annual operations from 2019 to up to 2024. And then that's an average. So as we looked at your projects and as we move through your projects, we need to really keep this in mind, when we're sizing an apron, when we're reevaluating your runway lengths and those types of things for your runway extension. The first project you had listed, and we're going to go through these one at a time, and then we'll certainly open it up for questions, was your runway, your rehabilitation projects for your runways. We have done quite a bit of research and looked at your conditions. Obviously, there's some areas where the pavement's spalled. We've taken these photos from your airport, older pavement. Some of this patching work, it looks like there was probably the wrong type of material put in there to patch. And then of course, just these falls. And then of course, when we replace our panels, we look at, putting a good base and material underneath there. So we help preserve, that runway pavement. The poorest we looked at, by the way, these are PCI scores. From the most recent pavement condition index from the Iowa DOT Office of Aviation. And as you can see, the taxiway up in this area, as well as the taxi lanes around the T hangar, are the worst, scored the worst pavement score in the whole airport. So those areas would be looked at as a remove and replace. We understand that there's a state application that's going to be, applied for to help with that. And the rest of the pavement will be funded under, pavement rehab will be funded under an FAA project. The one thing that the FAA wants to do when you look at any of these projects is they want to look at first a pavement condition report from the consultant. Where we go out, we'll evaluate the pavement. We'll actually take some cores and then put this together with a plan for the FAA as a rehab part of the projects. Some things we've done with the FAA recently to help expedite this rather than going out on your runway and evaluating is using drone technology. We've got commercial drone pilots on our team that are certified to fly at airports, with Mike's permission and all that goes with that. And then we give that report to the FAA with our recommendations. So next slide. Again, some of the other recommendations obviously would be sealing all the joints. And one of the concerns that we have with any type of a project like this that we look at is how are we going to phase construction? How do we keep our airport operational? So we work real closely with the airport manager, FBOs and other airport users to make sure we've got a really solid plan. Sometimes that means temporary displacements of the runway so we can still use portions of the runway. And then sometimes rerouting of taxiways and aircraft within those taxiways. There's down at the bottom, I know we put this in the packet as well. Some of the airports we've recently done this at with the Ottumwa Regional. We just finished a project at Charles City and we're in the process of finishing one at Newton. So all those have been going very well. The next thing you had listed in your 5-year program was the environmental assessment for a potential runway extension. In preparation for this interview, I had our environmental team go and do what we call a desktop survey of the airport. So we can kind of give ourselves a little bit of an idea if there are any environmental issues. None really stuck out. The one thing, as we look at extending runway 7, we're up against Willow Creek in certain areas. And that's a concern. And that's why we work with Paul and his group. They're experts in the floodplain and how we look at those water resources. So Paul, why don't you kind of walk through a couple of those bullets with us? And
sure, yeah, we noticed in the master plan of the airport, some of the mapping showed much of the airport in the zone AH, which is shallow flooding areas, and then Willow Creek itself is in the zone AE. And so that's a studied area where FEMA has produced a report with defined elevations based on their hydraulic modeling. So that signaled a couple things for us, knowing that it's an area that's going to require some extra attention. If you're going through the planning and design process, may require some intensive hydraulic modeling, or it's at least important to do that as you're going through the process to make sure that you're demonstrating minimal impacts so that you can get through the FAA approval processes. Also thinking about wanting to be a good neighbor to people upstream, thinking about 100-year water surface elevations and things like that. You've got businesses and homes and things. So kind of wanted to point out our recognition of that area and sensitivity to that, and also any development planning on the airport wanting to do that, thinking about resilient stormwater and keeping your airport operational and sustainable.
very good. Excuse me, there might be some other opportunities to include some other projects that the airport might want to do in the future as part of the environmental assessment. Some of the things that we're looking at, like we mentioned, the Willow Creek. Once that runway gets extended, we still need a full parallel taxiway through FAA guidelines. So that portion of the parallel taxiway is going to have to be extended to make sure we have a full parallel. We've got 3/4 mile visibility approaches, which are very good on runway 25. And if we don't have a full parallel, that endangers that approach now. So one of the things we're going to be looking at in the environmental assessment is, as that taxiway gets out, it's going to have to go across Willow Creek. We just did this on a couple of recent projects, same thing where we had to do that for a runway, and we put a box culvert over that so we don't have to mess around with trying to reroute that creek, which would throw Paul into fits, as well as a lot of other federal agencies. So the bottom of that box is open, so it lets aquatic life, doesn't disturb that as it comes through the taxiway. So that's going to be one of our main concerns. Also, in our analysis and alternatives section, we'll have to look at updating some of your critical aircraft forecasts as well. And again, some of our similar work that all our team has done there. So next slide. Getting to the runway extension, some of this information came out of your master plan. It wasn't quite clear on what the ultimate lengths were going to be, but looking at those numbers in the master plan, and then looking at your published lengths for 725, you've got declared distances, which we're showing on the right there. And for both runways, we did an anticipated number for the ultimate declared distances, which is on the right for runway 17. So you can see that gives us a little bit more runway length and for our takeoff distance and takeoff run available. The nice thing about that at this configuration is that that gets us a minimum landing distance of a little over 5,000 feet for runway 25. Yeah, and again, as we all know, the goals with all your heavy jet traffic and that, this needs to be evaluated very, very closely. As you can see in the red, that's where we would be looking at putting that culvert in as well. We talked about. One of the things I'd like to point out too with this, you've got a lot of older pavement out there on the north-south alignment. A lot of that can be recycled, into a sub-base that's required underneath your new runway pavement. We just did this for several airports, but most recently Ottumwa, utilizing the materials on site. So next slide. Then we looked at your apron, and what we've done here, we've got a aircraft movement program in our AutoCAD system. And we took one of those larger aircrafts, a G5, to see how that would move around the apron. As you can see how it tracks. And we kind of came up with a minimum size for that. And that's not saying that is the size. We need to work obviously closely with the FBO and others to get current operations for some of their charters and that. But we all know we're going to need some additional tie downs that will work with the airport a lot on that. This tracking software helps us a lot understand that. We just are in the process of doing a project at Newton. It's going to be a really large apron expansion, and the FAA was real happy with how the software worked and moved around, because as you know, with the big races, they go a ton of jets in there. So one of the things that we have a concern about that FAA just came out with was the what we call the AWOS critical area. Your AWOS is up there, and you've got a 500-foot circle around there. They want the tail heights evaluated within that critical area as you expand your apron, as to not interfere with any of the sensors. So.
All right.
Turn over to Paul.
I am here for the vertical side of things, the architecture, and we're aware that one of the areas you're looking at is the terminal itself. So I wanted to share a little bit about our design process. We have what we call visioning labs. That's essentially just a series of meetings that we have with the stakeholders, the individuals who are making the decisions using the spaces. In that, we start off with a kind of listen first approach where we sit down and we want to define what the user's needs are. What's really your Christmas list of projects that we want to get into this? And from there, that always gets whittled down as you start working through the design and exploring what can really happen, both from a budget standpoint and from a space standpoint. And knowing within your particular project that we have this nice Henry Fisk designed terminal already, part of that exploration is the historical nature of it and whether it makes sense to do something within this space or do something completely different, and working through that with you guys to figure out your needs and the direction you want to go. Once that's kind of worked through and we've kind of explored different alternatives, we go through kind of what we call alternative analysis, which is defining both is it what you guys are hoping to see, as well as giving you different options of what other ideas could be possible. Then we move in, you get your design, and then that's when we kind of go through the design development, which is where we're kind of refining details, getting to the construction documents, which is what we hand to the contractor, bidding it out, and then we're there all the way through construction and making sure kind of that design intent is getting met. So as you go through that process, this little graph here kind of shows how the decisions affect the cost. And so we try to help get as much decided and figured out early on, because as you go through the process, the decisions, the effect that has on the cost will start changing. So we want to help and make sure that you have less issues on the backside during construction, that we get that addressed as much as possible on the front end. Knowing your project type, we have done terminal projects, but knowing that the effect is also a historic building, I wanted to highlight one of our projects that we had, which was Bremer County Courthouse up in Waverly, which is a project I'm working on right now, which is on the National Registry. It's kind of interesting in the fact that that was designed by Mortimer Cleveland, who was for the Cedar Valley kind of the local go-to architect in that area. So very similar to Henry Fisk and being kind of the local architect for Iowa City at the time. And so we're very sensitive and understand kind of the sensitive nature of kind of walking through some of that work. That particular project includes an addition and it's a pretty extensive renovation, so.
Very good. Our mentioned Jeff, our specialist with the solar array, he's done some analysis. He's very familiar with your phase one. Also looked at your phase two. And of course, he provided some information for us for this next phase, looking at the maximizing the PV array solar energy production. And some of his approach looking at modeling software to determine, you know, the array size, location, you know, estimated annual energy production. And you've probably already gone through some of this exercise as well. And then of course, cost of maintenance. Some of those are these projects are certainly listed in our proposal as well. The other thing we want to do is collaborate with you folks on final locations and installations. You know, we know a lot of them are on the ground. Is there opportunity to look at, may not fit here at all, but a lot of different opportunities to look at, maybe placing some of them on a building. And then of course, everybody's understanding the benefit costs, lower operational cost, lower carbon footprint. We weren't sure if you folks were aware of the 30% federal tax credit that comes in with those types of projects for nonprofit as a part of the inflation reduction. I understand you'll be utilizing some of your bill money and maybe some of your AIP funds, you know, to help construct this phase two as well. So, and I'm sure you've already kind of gone through and meeting with your local utility companies and code officials to make sure that that's all in compliance. So with that, I think that takes us pretty close to our 20 minutes. We want to be really mindful of your time, but we're certainly here for you to ask us questions as long as you need to. But I'd like to just wrap up here with our slide, and then we'll certainly open it up to questions, whether it's on the SOQ about our presentation. We wanted to make certain that we put a very comprehensive team together. You know, a lot of thought went into this, you know, especially when you go into a terminal project. We need someone with Nate's experience and knowledge of, you know, how that all goes together, the historic values of this building. You know, is there an opportunity to utilize some of this space? Look at brand new areas, you know, we really needed that on our team. And then KLJ with our local coordination here with Keith and his experience in terminal projects and planning, being a project client services manager is always a nice feature. ISG, like we said, with the terminal project, LT Leon with the floodplain experience and other construction services they'll be helping us with as a part of your request for qualifications. You know, DBE was one of them, and they are certified DBE by the state of Iowa. The other things we like to do as a team is assist with your CIP, your capital improvement program each year. We actually try and dive deep into construction estimates and actual project costs, combine them with how can we maximize the federal dollars we get, state dollars, you know, and any other opportunities we may have. We make it a part of our general practice to attend monthly meetings. And we feel we want to become a part of the team. And you feel free to call any of our references. And that's one thing I've always been proud of as a leader of this aviation group. They always do this very high marks, especially with attending the meetings and communication. I mentioned pilots on the team. I think that's always a critical element, that understanding how a King Air 200 maneuvers. How big is a G5? You know, I mean, that's massive aircraft. You know, how does that swing? How does that turn, you know, through a taxiway? And we've been very pleased that the last 12, 14 years or so, we've won right at 12 state and national paving, airport paving awards for runway rehabilitation and runway extensions. And as I mentioned, communication is the key for this team. And with that, I'd just like to say we really look forward and we're very excited to have the opportunity to work with you. We would certainly entertain questions at this time.
Yeah, I'd like to hear a little more from Keith about what a client relationship manager does. How you would help us.
Well, great question. I feel that I would be that direct liaison between Kirk and Michael, my firm with KLJ, and with Mike on the team, where if he needs to communicate to the board, he can do that either via email correspondence, calls, or potentially during the monthly meeting. So if we were tasked with and we would be attending the meetings, that if Mike or the board members had any questions regarding the status of the project, where are we at, I should be able to easily give you that information without question.
It's kind of an added service that feels very important because we attend several meetings every month and a lot of times we can't make every one, so.
I'm about an hour and I'll say 40 minutes away, so I'm pretty close to the Iowa City here.
I have a question.
Yeah.
With the solar panels, do you have an experience or anybody who's experienced with having the solar panels that you can actually park underneath? Rather than have
Carport, sorry.
carport, yeah,
Yeah.
type thing.
Yeah, I know, our electrical sub has done them in a lot of different configurations on different roofs and that type of thing. I don't know their exact experience or our exact experience, but from what we've talked about and what they've done with a lot of different buildings, I don't see why that would be any kind of issue.
A solar panel apparently is not a very heavy device.
Right.
And they're honestly quite easy to maintain, which is important when you're looking at trying to allocate staff. It's not like you have to annually or quarterly clean the glass per se. And then also too, they seem to be very weather resistant, which is good for the airport operator from a damage perspective, adverse weather, hail, etc. So that's a side benefit that I think you guys can be looking forward to as you kick off, or if you haven't already, your existing first phase of your solar array. I think that's a benefit that maybe a lot of folks don't understand about the solar panel itself.
No, good question.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah,
Thank you all.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Would you guys like a hard copy of our presentation? I know you have a lot of, let's get some.
Oh, that's good.
This is, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thrown around. I appreciate that.
This is especially ours.
Unfortunately, it's the same airport 4 times.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having us.
I can put one here for my seat.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm good. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Overall, I think it's where it's expected to be, but you've seen it, I'll take a pellet numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
I think.
There's some pocket though. You can do like some trees or something. Yeah, you know what? They don't. You're probably like.
There has to be some bigger ones.
I think when it's happening.
You know, my son-in-law's an Apache. And they're always looking for places to play. Send him over here.
I was gonna say, get a C-47 out of your station with the army sort of thing. And the glass is in my house around. Yeah, like 4,000 feet in the air. Yeah, you too. Thank you so much. Yeah. Oh, you're Airbus. It just comes along.
No, it's big, it's got a big one, bigger one at the university. A bit louder than your.
What did they get? Yeah.
What do they call that, Mike? This one that just took off, just saying.
I wasn't.
Oh,
They have a bigger one. Sam, there's your copter business.
It sounds like it,
I
yeah.
don't know what it is.
I love to pay attention, cause yeah, when everyone flies over, I don't even notice it.
Yeah, it's not bad. This new one's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank
You are annoying.
Thank you all. Have a good night here.
Yeah.
Come up to, we'll be back.
Don't worry, we're not.
Anybody else needs a restroom break or? Are we keep going or?
Yeah.
The collector.
Let electric come back, yeah.
Stand up for a
Hey,
second.
Michael, is Keith the previous manager for? I'm sorry, he said, he looks so familiar.
Yeah, I worked at Martin for, I want to say about 10 years. And then just left, yeah, about a year ago now.
Okay, that makes sense.
I was not impressed with it.
Yeah. I don't think it's real water. Or maybe what we do.
Yeah, I'm not bothered with other terminals today.
Yeah.
Well, that was, and we're not putting panels on roofs, we already established. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's good.
He's so close, he's in it, I'm
But that's what we couldn't understand, that he, there was, at first they were saying they would attend every meeting, but it was gonna be the client service. And, yeah, he would be, I think it was Keith who was gonna be basically, based on between all of them. Yeah.
That makes no sense.
Well, I got choices, right?
Yeah.
Why you gotta pick them four instead of the.
What is it? What is it, I don't know, a good choice analogy, it's not when they, when you like this, you get something from. I forget what the. I don't know, there should be like a bountiful something, or like, if things are, I don't know, rejoicing. Yeah.
So, well, the presentation, I was like. Close the door.
Yes.
They are in. No reversion.
Well, I would also say that I.
Hello.
For your last one, it's math. Assuming most.
You set up a very. No, we can plug, we've got the.
Yeah, we can do it that way.
Oh.
And we'll just
use flashlight.
Yeah, go off.
And then just plug your.
Are you replacement for your hair?
Whatever you guys want to do, this is kind of a general area, that way everybody can. Point towards the microphone and see the screen. We'll,
We're gonna test things out.
right into a USB.
They got the placements.
Oh, no, man.
Oh, I didn't. Okay, we got extras.
Yeah, are we full?
No, I think we got.
Otherwise, I'll just give you the mouse.
We can charge the clicker.
Is it gonna work?
We can test it. Yeah.
Yeah, it works.
All right, welcome. Ready?
Ready, let's go.
Away.
I want you to picture a terminal building that not only meets the demands of Iowa City's growing airport, but is a gateway reflecting the pride and vibrancy of this community. Now, your last airport commission meeting, hope for the terminal building seemed to fade after your latest ATP application did not receive funding. Tonight, we're asking you to not give up on that dream that you guys have worked so hard to achieve. At McClure, we've helped airports just like Iowa City turn their vision into reality. With over $80 million of airport infrastructure projects delivered, we have proven our ability to secure funding, build relationships, and position projects for success. As your local partner, we are deeply connected to the Iowa City community, and we care about this airport. We are committed, just as you guys are, to ensuring that this airport remains a cornerstone of economic growth and community pride. My name is Adam Thompson, and I will serve as the client liaison from the airport to our team. And I am absolutely honored to be here this evening. Joining me is my partner, Jay.
Hi, I'm Jay Prudence. I'm team leader of our aviation group. Been with, about 20 years of aviation experience. And I'm going to make sure that you guys get the resources you need to keep your projects on track, as well as help with strategic planning and project funding.
Good evening. My name is Melissa Underwood, and I'm an airport planner with SCH on the McClure team for this project. I've been doing airport planning for 23 years. I have my private pilot's license, and I actually helped on the master plan project for Iowa City a few years back. And I'm excited to be here this evening.
And I'm Dave Zarodnik with Newman Munson Architects. I'm a principal and vice president. Newman Munson has been a fixture in this town and been around for 47 years. And we're very proud of the relationships we've been able to build, both with the city of Iowa City, completing projects like your new public works facility, and now working on your new transit hub and repair facilities. Also with the university, our largest client, doing most of their athletic works with Kinnick Stadium, working on a new experiential opportunity for Carver Hawkeye Arena. Let's not talk about what's happening there right now. Don't know which side of the fence you're on.
It's a good thing. You know what side of the fence.
We're a women's basketball school.
And also the UIHC hospitals and clinics, our largest clients. So we understand the experiential, the experience that the people are using those facilities have. And some of those that are coming to those facilities, that experience starts here. This is the front door to Iowa City for those that are traveling by air, and it's the last thing they experience as they leave. And so making the most out of that experience is what it's all about.
Now, the team of industry experts that we have assembled to serve the airport goes beyond the four of us up here. At McClure, we have 15 aviation-specific engineers on our team. At SEH and Newman Munson, they have vast teams of their industry experts as well. And we have all joined together to provide the best service possible to the airport. I'm going to have Jay talk more about some ways that we're going to help you with your project.
All right, let's dig in. This is something that was introduced to me. It's nothing really new, but it's something that stuck with me is 4 elements of a project. You got a problem you're trying to solve. The first problem, which is one of your pain points, is building a new terminal. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. For each problem, you come up with potential solutions, ultimately arrive at a preferred solution. The main thing, though, is how are you going to fund that solution? And that's something that we're going to talk a lot about here tonight. You've interviewed 3 really good teams for the 4th. Good engineers, good architects. They can do great designs. We know they can. We've seen it. We can as well. Where we feel like we set ourselves apart is we're going to help you fill that funding gap. We know that there's a gap there. We have ways that we're going to help you resolve it. And we think that we can help you bring this project to fruition. In our proposal, we laid out over 20 potential buckets of money that we could help you tap in order to fill that funding gap that you need for this terminal project. We're lucky, the FAA normally funds 90% of projects. When it gets above and beyond, you get into discretionary. And if the project doesn't score well, you got to figure out other ways to pay for it. And that's what you guys are dealing with right now. I want to share one example where we helped another one of our airport clients figure out a way to fund a project that wasn't going to get FAA funding. We're in the process of designing the reconstruction of Ankeny's primary runway 1836. 30-year-old runway, deteriorating quickly. They also have in their plan to extend the runway 500 feet to the north. You knew the FAA wasn't going to fund it because that's not the way it works. They're going to have to wait probably 5-6 years before that gets funding. Excuse me. We found another pot of money. We knew that our congressional district wasn't supportive of community project funding. We went out and got $3 million. We were able to secure $3 million to move that project forward at the same time. Huge win for the airport, huge win for the district from an economic standpoint. And the project's going to happen at the same time. In our proposal, we laid out 3 potential scenarios of a funding stack. How are you going to fund this terminal project? We're going to talk a little bit more about scenario 2, which scenario 2 is a position where we can help you get $1 million of ATP funding, we think. We have Melissa here who's going to talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. There are several other pots of money with a combination of federal, state, local, and even private funding. We want to be your partner and your advocate to help you champion finding that additional funding. We're ready to start those conversations, setting up meetings, helping your constituents and your stakeholders understand how important this terminal is and help bring this project to a reality. I'm going to turn this over to Melissa and talk more about ATP funding, the experience they've had with it.
Great, thank you, Dave. So on the planning piece, I've been added to the team for planning and also the experience we have with ATP grants and applications. And a big part of that success comes from coordination with the FAA. So what we would do is starting in January is we would be your champion for that process. And a big piece of that is the communication. So in January, we would have a preliminary kickoff meeting, talk about your needs for the project, some funding potential, what your concerns are, what the community may be concerned about, and take that and meet with Junior Lindsay and the team at the FAA and start telling your story. Because the key to the success of these projects is to have the FAA at the ADO level, share it at the regional level, or share your story at headquarters. And you need that support and build a process along the way. This process isn't guaranteed. FAA funding isn't guaranteed, and the ATP program isn't guaranteed, but it has been proven to be successful. Our next round of meetings would be to work on the environmental documentation, to work on the CADX, to have it submitted by March or April, so that you're getting ahead of that ATP grant application. We would meet again with the tenants at the airport staff, and the airport commission, and then followed up with Junior Lindsay and his team as well. And then we would go back, work on some of those items, and then have a third meeting to kind of finalize the funding piece, look at preliminary design, because the goal and the story that you want to tell Junior Lindsay at the end is that your project is at a great point to have planning complete, the environmental work completed, if not almost completed, and preliminary design done enough that you can start to talk to them about funding. That way, when you apply for the grant, the FAA understands that your project is ready. So if you did receive that award, in 6 months, you would be ready to bid your project. So there's a lot of upfront work in the next 6 months, but we're confident that we can pull a team together to help you through that process.
Now, when we talk about having the money and being ready, I mean, that's the exciting part and having an opportunity to move this project forward. What you saw in the video at the very beginning of this was just kind of a response and a quick reaction and another option for where you kind of ended last time in terms of looking at a replacement for this facility. That's one option. And that was our team kind of designing that in a little bit of a vacuum. And that's not how we work. We just wanted to throw something else out there. It's kind of sexy. It's kind of fun. We had a good time doing it. But is that a reality? No, we need to really interact with you. We need to ask the tough questions again and maybe revisit some of the questions that were asked in the past study to understand why you were leaning the way you were leaning, and see if there are even other opportunities and other things to explore that you've already maybe had taken off the table last time. And one of the things I'm thinking about is even an additional funding source that might be out there in the form of historic tax credits. We have a building here that I know that last time your preferred solution was to take down the building. And is there an opportunity to do some repurposing? We're just asking questions at this point, and maybe we will re-explore some as we go forward. But there's a possibility of getting state historic tax credits to help with reconstruction and repurposing, and maybe can put other funds towards an addition or different part. We had worked with the church that was designed by Louis Sullivan up in Cedar Rapids that went through about a $4.5 million renovation work. But even though it was a church, never paid taxes, we got $1.2 million in tax credits to help with that. And that's not a small amount. But it's just asking that we take another look at this with fresh eyes, re-examine things. Not to say that raising this building is not an impossibility, but I don't want you to think that it's not going to be without its challenges. There are people in this community that will speak up, and we have to make sure that we can answer their questions when it's time to, and make sure we're heading down the correct path. Ultimately, what we want is the best experience for the end users. And as we were talking about earlier, It's those users that are coming to the game for the game day experience, or those that are coming to use the hospitals, or even doing business here in Iowa City. This is how they are welcome to our city, and this is their last impression when they leave. And that's what's important, and we want to make sure we're meeting your needs. So that's going to be a part of the integral design process and ultimately the goal.
Good, thanks, Dave. So we want to pivot quickly and look at the projects that you have on your CIP. First, looking at your runway maintenance project, your runway rehab project. So in our experience, the success of runway or pavement maintenance projects depends heavily on two things: responsiveness and communication. Now, for us, that starts in our design process, and we fully adapt that during our design process. But we found that it is most importantly demonstrated within the design or within the construction team and the construction services team who's on site helping to build that. At McClure, we have a unique thing, and we have an aviation specific construction services team. This team of construction site inspectors, all they do is aviation work. They have an immense understanding and knowledge when it comes to airport design standards, criteria, and they will help ensure that the best product is being given to the airport. Our team is led by Michael Wahardo out of our Coralville office. He is held in the highest regard by every client that he works with. And by selecting McClure, Michael will oversee the construction projects here at the airport. On the placements that we gave you, we talked a little bit more about our construction approach and about that team. Looking next at your solar project, this is really an opportunity for our proven approach to really shine. In our experience, solar projects are inherently complex. You're dealing with multiple stakeholders, you're dealing with finite and strict timelines, and you're dealing with connection into existing infrastructure. And a lot of times the infrastructure is old, aging infrastructure. Well, our approach is really designed to overcome these challenges. But this foundation of our approach isn't just for solar projects. It's really the approach that we use on every project, from designing quality runways to looking at and coordinating apron expansion projects. It's the foundation that we utilize to deliver friction-free results for the airport. Next, all right, looking at your apron expansion project. This is a wonderful opportunity to align the goals of your master plan with the needs and future needs of the airport. Now, we believe it's really important to follow the goals of a master plan and to use that as a roadmap, but we also believe it's equally as important to take a step back from time to time, to see what you've been able to complete, where you're at today, and look at what those future potential needs may be. By taking this approach and looking at the airport this way, it really allows us to develop and plan for the best possible projects that have the highest impact and can also be implemented most efficiently for the airport. One of the things that we are proposing, but when you partner with McClure, we would like to undertake a strategic capital planning initiative within the first 3 months of coming on board. This isn't something we expect to be paid for or anything like that. We're doing this, or proposing to do this, because we want to develop the highest level of collaboration between your team and ours as your trusted local partner. I don't know. The Iowa City Airport stands as a vital gateway to the community. It embodies the energy, the growth, and the potential of this community. Now at McClure, we're not just engineers. We're advocates, collaborators, and we're your trusted local partner to help you move your projects forward for success. Now, hope for the terminal building may have felt out of reach, but we're here tonight to reignite that vision and to remind you that that dream is still alive and it's still very much achievable. We're asking for an opportunity to walk this journey with you,
to secure funding, build relationships, and move transformative projects forward that elevate the Iowa City Airport. Together, we can ensure that this airport remains the centerpiece of pride and progress for this community. We are very thankful for your time this evening, and we welcome any questions that you have.
Chris, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
We're also getting caught now.
Yeah, where's the?
I already opened it, but
There's water behind you.
There's actually.
I have an architecture question. So,
All right,
you mentioned the historic value of this building.
yes.
And we've heard this from other community members as well. Henry Fisk, I guess, designed many buildings around here. Maybe my aesthetics are different than some people, but I see this as being a brick box with some glass block in front of a flat roof.
Oh, God, you said that on the record.
you can see architectural terms.
Get all sorts of mail, but I'm wondering, and we have terrible problems with the roof leaking and the HVAC system being horrible, and it's not insulated. But you know, if we get $1 million, that's not going to build us a new terminal. So, you know, what can we do with this building to make it more functional, make it more attractive, perhaps in the short term, and preserve its dream maybe of a new terminal for the future?
Sure. Well, okay, so first of all, architectural styles aside, everybody has different tastes on what they like and don't like. I mean, this is a beautiful example of what was happening in some of the mid-century modern feel and character of this. And there are several of those Henry Fisk buildings around town, City Hall, the old the building just up the street from there, and I can't think of the name of it right now, but the rec center too, yes. But I think there are opportunities to take a look at this and repurpose different things. Now, I think there's parts of this building that are not going to meet your needs in terms of some of this wow space, this really green. So is there an opportunity to hyphenate a connection? And that's one of the things that historical tax credits and SHPOs appreciate, that hyphenation, so that you can have a definite stop at where the historic period stopped and started, and repurpose some of these things for other uses. Might make sense, and it might be one of those ways that you get a win-win for the community, where you can preserve something that's near and dear to people's hearts, but still get that wow space that you want and meet some of your other needs. That would be one of the approaches we'd want to look at, along with the whole new building entirely. I think it needs to be well vetted so you can tell the story and you can tell it honestly to everybody, so you're not doing anything behind anyone's back, and invite the community into the process so they understand what's happening. That's one of the things we love doing, building that empathy for what you're struggling with and keeping it out there in the public so everybody knows.
And Warren, this was really one of the reasons why we invited Newman Munson to join this. They have tremendous experience working with the local preservation group, working with SHPO. They have the experience to be able to help the commission, help the airport through that process, to be a champion for yours in whatever path that may be going forward. But I feel really confident, I hope you guys do too, that they can be a champion of yours.
I'm going through a home renovation on a 140-year-old house in Des Moines, going through and trying to get historic tax credits and the historic preservation mission. It's been painful, but I understand why they're necessary, and we're working through it. But like, having folks that are in tune with it and know those folks and have those relationships, like, you can't imagine, not doing it without it, I guess.
I have a question about the funding. What kind of experience have you had? How far up on the funding questions? Do you have context all the way to Washington, D.C., or, I mean?
Yeah, we have numerous stories of our relationships with congressmen, representatives, and I know these guys do as well. And locally, we have tremendous relationships with the university, the hospital, the athletics department. We are very confident that we would be able to obtain their support for the terminal building project.
and be able to use that support when we go, market and sell this project. You get an entity like that behind this project, supporting this project. It's going to garner a lot of other support within this community, regionally and also nationally.
So let's dive into that a little bit, because I think one of the challenges we've had is that we've been very much floating around in a lifeboat at sea when it comes to garnering some of that support. So Electra and I have met with, I mean, we're both university employees, but we obviously didn't meet with these people in our employment capacity, but we tried to understand who in the PR world, the strategic communications world we needed to talk to. And we engaged with some people who had congressional contacts, who it was basically their federal liaison, right? Because there's lots of stuff that they do that they need to get congressional support for, or what have you. So what sorts of activities are you doing for your clients to help attract the interests of a place like the university that may be reticent to commit capital funds to a municipal project because they've got so much of their own stuff they're dealing with? How do you engage with those groups? And then how do you leverage it to get support at the federal level?
Yeah. So, we both want to tackle this one. Look at this. We're just chomping at the bit.
I'll add whatever you missed.
So I think there's one point I want to make first off on that is we do not intend or think that it's even a good possibility to ask the university or the hospital for any sort of financial obligation to this as well. And honestly, their public support for the airport and for the terminal is worth significantly more than any dollars that they will provide.
Yeah.
So within within Iowa City, the projects that our team has been involved in, McClure as a company, projects that Newman Munson have been involved in, we have connections with the individuals that are the influencers to help make those decisions. Beyond that, another example with your local representative in Burlington, we work closely with Miller Meek's office, and we were able to get $2 million of CPF funding for their entrance road project. We work closely with their office and closely with Miller Meeks, and we're able to bring that project forward. It's been an incredible tool for us in helping to support the airports that we work with.
So Adam comes from a city administration background, but he's also an urban planner. He used to be the city administrator in Ely, and also was in the administration, I don't know what your role was, but in Muscatine. Through that, he has developed a lot of relationships with congressional folks. We also have somebody that comes from a planning role in the Des Moines area. She has gotten to know congressmen throughout the state. I think out of 7 projects that got CPF funding for Congressman Nunn, we got 3 of them. We helped our clients get 3 of them for, I think we got $7 million. The Yankee one I mentioned was $3 million. So we have folks on staff that know these people, and obviously you have to have a good application. You have to tell a good story in order to get the project, but it helps to be able to get the meeting set up to be able to have that conversation.
And I think a really good example is a project that our company was involved in Okoboji. They had a $20 million corridor renovation project. They didn't have the funds locally for it, and our chairman of our company took it upon himself to reach out to people, to pull strings, and they're able to get a $5 million contribution.
It's called Imagine Great Lakes, and there's every lake has people around the lake that have a lot of money, and we happen to know some people that have a lot of money and they wanted to see the lake improve, and that family was able to donate a good chunk of change because of the project. But yeah, that's one really good example, because we brought the team together, but we really didn't do much of the work. We were just more the facilitators than anything.
Yep.
I think it's important too, as an airport sponsor, to be fiscally responsible through using the federal and state funding that's available for airports as much as possible. And I think that helps other, entities, or helps you reach other organizations see that effort coming forward to be able to participate as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. We got hired in Decorah a couple of years ago. We were able to cobble together, I think, 5 different pots of money. And 2 of them were 2 years of state funding for both Gavi and AIP, using their AIP and BIL money from the FAA. And they're able to build a terminal and a new box hangar up there, which they're in need of. And it's just figuring out where the gaps are and trying to figure out which pot of money makes the most sense, you know, that you can apply for and have a good chance. And just from what I mean, I know ATP, it's probably a bad 3-letter right now, but from what Melissa's team has done, it's like they have a roadmap to be able to, and they've been successful on 6 projects over the last 4 years. Like, that's awesome. There's still 2 more years to come. So I don't know. Well, or we're down to 1 more. Sorry.
Afterwards. Any other questions? Good. You're good? Yes. Warren? No. Eddie? Okay.
She looks like she's still thinking now.
You can see my hand.
Yes.
The phase 2 solar panels, being able to park underneath them. Are you comfortable with that? Are you?
Yeah, we're absolutely,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely comfortable with it. I think, you know, when we look at this, and I know Mike and I have had this discussion as well, is the structure itself, those structures are ineligible to be paid for with federal dollars. So that increases the local match requirement for it. And, you know, it's something I want to talk about more with you guys to see if that's a real possibility. We looked at that with our Southeast Iowa Regional Airport solar project. That was about a $7 million solar array system, power distribution. The structure itself for the solar arrays was about $200,000 on top of the $700,000 project. It wasn't even in the cards to consider that from a local match standpoint. So absolutely, if that's the direction that this commission wants to go, we are fully prepared and able to support that. We just think that there's some additional challenges that we should discuss before going in that direction.
Just thinking, since the roofs, we can't put them on the roof. We know that, but this at least would give us more parking space.
Absolutely, and maybe there's, yeah, I would love to look at other possibilities and other options, and I think that's something that our team is very good at. Beyond the experience that we have, the experience that Design Engineers has on our team, Newman Munson has been involved in several solar projects in Iowa City, and they.
Yeah, doing the public works facility, we got phase 1 of that done. We had studied Terry Trubla do the bidding process and everything. There were some issues with the awarded contractor, so that went by the wayside, but we're getting ready to work on phase 2 of that.
Thank you for your question. I'm glad I pulled that out a little bit.
And we have designed parking structures with solar on it, downtown Des Moines, the new ramp down there on 2nd Street ramp. The top floor has solar panels and is running the electricity for the ramp, and the car charging down below is free.
Oh, we better the door.
The door.
Well, if we don't have any other questions, we can,
Yeah, all right.
can excuse you to find a ticket.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming.
We wanted to keep your attention throughout our presentation, so we didn't pass these out ahead of time, but I'm gonna pass these around so that you guys have our presentation.
Thank you.
And what you want to speak? Yeah, does anyone need an additional copy of our present or our proposal? We brought 4 copies of those as well.
I'm okay.
I think we got it. Yeah.
Good enough.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
No, we don't want that much paper. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You got a copy of it?
Do you need to leave, are you leaving the flash drive?
Yeah.
It's here.
Oh, yeah.
I know there was an architect.
You had that one.
This one, mid-century of that area.
Warren's more of a, Warren's capitalism. There you go. You like the building? He wants a.
like the Soviet.
Oh, yeah, can we make it? Can we look like it's fireproof from the 70s? There was Bill Burr came to Iowa Day when I was going to graduate. And he goes, this place is like a bush. He's like, it's like everything is concrete.
I saw him in Des Moines and he used that same.
Similar?
Yeah.
It's a good place. The Midwest is really likes concrete.
Yeah.
It's like
Gotta withstand the elements, right?
exactly. You can't just make it out good.
No.
Have you ever been to the New England area? Like New Hampshire?
Someone Connecticut, but not very much.
We have an office in Portsmouth, New Hampshire.
Mhm.
All of the curbs are made out of granite. It's
Oh.
like, we're walking around in the downtown and all the locals are like, what are these guys doing? But we're just in awe. They have granite curbs.
You couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
There's so much granite, like it's up in the air.
We wish we had concrete.
Yeah.
No extreme to the other.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Portion?
No,
Are you gonna go?
they're just being
I doubt
respectful.
it. I'm on like day 21 of this.
Not hanging out.
At this point, it's probably like a nice selection.
But nobody has the link, so.
I'm way better today. Oh, I thought this was 2 weeks ago.
It is.
Oh.
We don't advertise the Zoom link though, because if you want to be a part of it, you're like you are.
Got it. Agreed. Okay. I didn't know that. I thought it was publicized. I thought they were, because I was like, oh, that's already open.
Yeah, it was during COVID.
Okay.
It was part of the agenda.
Sorry.
Oh, no, it's not open. You have to send-
Yeah.
Think that.
Like,
I
where-
think it'd be
yeah, I
nice,
would send
because
you
it's
the-
not as noisy too.
He can come in.
Yeah, we'll let that.
Yeah.
All right, so I think the outcome tonight is that we want to choose a firm if we can, right?
That would be preferable.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
So while it's fresh, Ryan, you and Warren and Judy probably have the most notes. I'm very good.
Well,
I recorded.
so to me, it's easy to throw out a Kirk like.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can all agree on that.
That tough.
I don't know. I think it gets, it's actually for me, I think it's easier than I thought it was. Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, let's hear what you have to say.
What I have to say is that for me, it's probably down either CMT or Moncler.
Yeah, that's my choices.
I have, it's not buyer's remorse. I have questions for Carl and Bolton Mink around, they have this team for development. And all I can think of is where were these teams the last few years to help us try to get some of this support, and it just feels, I don't know. I'm not saying that Bolton Mink didn't do a great job. I think that with all the challenges we had with COVID and everything else, runway looks great, got the work. I was not as impressed with Bolton Mink through the terminal project proposal process. In fact, it feels like we wasted time.
So, yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. And I was surprised to hear they have a congressional liaison and all that.
Yeah.
On the other hand, they have pretty bold vision for how we could move forward.
I think it's bold, but it came from his time as a private, or not a private employee, but an employee for airports that had a catchment of like.
Yeah.
Denver's what, 4 million people or something?
But if we all agree that they're out, why are we just?
Because I think that it's important.
Because he's not sure.
I don't think he's sure that they're out.
Yeah, I mean, I think personally, Carl's come to every meeting.
Yes, sure.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that.
Whenever there's something going on at the airport,
But you also
construction,
mentioned that-
he's here all the time supervising things.
Yeah, no, but I also think, so AECom did that a lot too.
Yeah.
It was David.
Yeah.
AECom was here for a lot of the meetings as well, because we always have something
construction project going on, so they're always gonna be here. So I don't wanna say that that's a high bar, I think that that's actually the minimum that I would expect from the firm that we hired. But I like Carl, he's very versatile, he's been a great person to work with, I just think that, if I'm honest, I think that the
They could have done that.
McClure hit on my biggest concern about all of this, and that is funding. They by far had the most comprehensive plan for funding.
That's true.
And I think CMT was
CMT had a
in second on that.
Me sort of, because they were also like super government focused and super government focused of areas that their legislators have a very desirable or a very good reason for them to want to spend money in their districts, because there's a lot of money there that they can recapture for other things. I mean, Schaumburg and Milwaukee, like it's night and day, tons of money.
That's Chicago.
So yeah, I mean,
Yeah, when he was surprised that Schaumburg had a lobbyist, I'm like, have you been in Schaumburg? Have you seen Michael Jordan's house? Like, yeah.
so yeah. I agree, I like all that.
Positive side for my clear, you know, Adam has been coming to pretty much all of our meetings.
Yeah.
With their local.
They're hungry. They
Yeah.
want to do a good job.
Yeah.
It seemed like they would connect in with us more. I mean, plus they've done all the local things too. I mean, but it seems like they understand Iowa City community and I don't know,
The forces at play.
yeah, whereas CMT, I liked their funding, you know, that they could do all of that stuff, but I had a feeling it's like we were just part of a little puddle in this big ocean of stuff that they're doing, and they weren't gonna care about us.
Which is one of the things we said about AECOM. When we were, this, the AECOM was in contention for Bolton and England. But that was actually something we directly said was, felt like we got forgotten.
Yeah.
Because they were
AECOM is massive.
Yeah.
We are little fish. You know,
I didn't feel like we were. So that pretty much puts it in the current one that I would be interested in.
I want to touch on something Warren said, because I think it's important. I agree that Bolton vision for the airport is bold. It looks really great. We also have no infrastructure on that side of the airport that we would have to fund somehow.
Yeah.
That's certain.
I don't think there's any customers. I mean, I'm with you. Can I consult with Matt? Matt, can I consult with you? There's people who want space on the airport, but a legitimate, like, large amount of space, I mean, that'd be tough because you're still trying to find. I feel like we're finding individuals, not like corporations, because they go to, I would assume they go to Cedar Rapids.
Yeah, there's not a super strong corporate aircraft owner base in Iowa City. Even a lot of our customers are from Cedar Rapids area.
Okay.
You know, and the ones, there's some that have just recently bought, like the PC-12 based here on the deal and stuff, and I've tried to get them to build and do, and part of it is we might need to be more aggressive in terms of the years of the land lease and different things like that to try to get them to do it. But when they do build, they're gonna build a, you know, 6,000 square foot building, not a, 20,000 square foot. Yeah, Jet Air is the biggest one we built was 10,000 square feet, and that was a huge undertaking, and it's gonna take, it was a 30-year land lease, and it didn't really make sense for us to do it, but we did it because we were out of space, you know what I mean? That's the hard part is.
So when you see the lease like this,
Well,
put
lease
the business in
leases,
front, right?
yeah, so if you're spending over $1 million for a building. If the lease expires in 30 years, that means you gotta get $1 million back in 30 years. And at the end of that, you lose it, so it's true depreciation. But a lot of the airports, like Mason City, is on 50 years. Some of them are 50 years renewable, like you said, now the downside is the airport doesn't get as much money. But conceivably, it's got airplanes in there, they're getting flowage fees and stuff like that, but. So that's the way that you can increase it and make it more competitive, but I think that even if you did that. You're not fishing for a gigantic manufacturing facility of airplanes or something like that.
Yeah.
Likely. And Cedar Rapids, they mentioned Cedar Rapids, and it plays into it some, like they're literally with cash, building out the infrastructure for 2 40,000 square foot hangars, like just wild, you know, stuff that we just can't get there. Which is the downside of the south development, is it'd be a lot of work. But
It's cool though. It's a cool picture. Oh, yeah. I would love to see it. I truly don't think I'm gonna see it in my life. I feel.
I was hoping they'd be like, yeah, we went to, I don't know, Red Oak and we like built a new terminal or like found a way to like, you know, bring somebody or was like made this infrastructure available, but I think they're like, I couldn't go over to Greeley and Rocky Mountain. They're like, they're in Denver. They're not in the downtown, but they're Denver.
Yeah. It's a bit like saying, we built a new terminal at Aspen.
Yeah.
We could be more worlds apart. Yeah. McClure's example of Decorum was much more appropriate. I mean, that's fine. They were keyed in, man. They were keyed in.
That's because Adam's been coming to the meetings for the last year. Like, they want this.
They're hungry for that.
I mean, ever since they opened up their office like 2 years ago, Adam has been constant conversation.
whether or not it's relevant or not, McClure, so we're the FBO in Burlington, and they're the engineering firm there, McClure is. And I think they've been really responsive on things, and stuff like that, they built the hangar there. I was a little, you know, I wasn't super pleased, he put me down for 450,000 on that.
So I saw that and I was like, I tried not to make eye contact because I was like, I didn't want to, you know, but I was like, did he talk?
So just clarify, that wasn't there yet.
That Air Iowa City.
But like I say, but they're aggressive, and I say, so in Burlington, that was one thing that happened there, is they were constructing a building, they're building down there. And they went and got funding, part of it I wasn't, you know, wasn't super, they didn't find a good way around it, they ended up needing to do sprinklers in the hangar. And that cost a huge amount of money, so it took them a lot of money to build a building. But like when it came to the shortfall, it wasn't that they were just done, they approached us and different things like that. And we ended up contributing to that in exchange for different things too. Yeah. But I felt like they were motivated and active in it, so.
Yeah.
You wanna build this home?
The polls in turn. We get like 50 people do it.
Wrap the final, so that way it's just an ass face on that.
Look at that, come on.
Well, I would.
Any other commentary that people want to provide? I know it's late, but we are making a choice for the next 5 years, so it is a point.
No problem in time.
I like the fact that even though the McClure seems to be smaller than any of the other ones, they had the technology. And a little bit of a show off that they did was the video intro that they did. So I like that even though they're small, they are up to date with things. Or this one. Like, actually, I was falling asleep.
I'm gonna ask you the same question I asked last time. I know it's our decision to make, but what opinions?
I mean, I like the work that Bolton has done.
Yeah.
I think, you know, we've literally been sitting here for 2 years talking about this terminal building and talking about how to get legislative help, how to get all of this help to get the ATP money. And now they dropped the like, yeah, we've got this legislative liaison on us. Like, where have you been for the last 2 years? Like, you've literally been involved in this conversation. So I'm a little.
So my frustration is perhaps shared. I'm not alone on anger.
I have no explanation. Technical wise, like, I mean, we're dealing with a few things that are not necessarily their fault, like manufacturer garbage. But they're responsive. They're getting the process and getting things done. So again, technical wise, project wise, I'm happy with the products they've given us. But yeah, the intangible stuff, that is just killing me.
I know, yeah. Well, and the allure of McClure's message for me is that none of us are for this. We aren't, I mean, Jesus, we struggle to get $30,000 for a mural. How are we gonna get 7 million? I mean, it's not.
Very difficult.
It's very difficult, and it's not in our skill set to go out and do this, and we need help, and they're the only ones who really spoke to it. And that's.
And being able to, you think outside the box. I mean, you saw the list of just general, Matt was on there, FBO was on there, city. I mean, they had a dollar amount for the city.
They did 2 million, yeah.
Obviously, we have to have conversations. But the fact that they're thinking of like, here's the list of things, whether it was the Riverside Casino or whatever. And my brain is going wonky already. But they had the list of like possible options and what can we do and.
They know the community.
Yeah, they
know how to play the game.
They know how.
Basically, they do, they know how to play it. And Jay and Adam have been around, I mean, as far as airport, I mean, Melissa helped write the airport master plan when we did it, what's it been, 7 years ago now, almost 8. So I don't expect them to be going anywhere, and that's another thing I have with Bolton Make, like Carl did allude to.
He did say, that's not.
They are training up their new people, they are getting people, up to speed and to that level where there's not gonna be an issue, but at the same time, you're gonna lose all of that generational knowledge with Carl. It's impossible to replace without another 30 years of experience.
And can we vote?
I mean, it's just unanimous, right? Like,
It's
just,
I mean.
You're looking for consensus.
For the purpose of the minutes, I would like to have an actual motion.
Okay.
It says motion.
Oh, yeah, it does. All right. Is the consensus McClure?
Yes.
Okay, I move that we select McClure Engineering as the engineering consultant firm for the next 5 years. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
I know it's opposed to. Mike, you want to let them know tonight? I'm sure that everyone's still.
Well, that's my next question is, I know Adam is sticking around downstairs because that's what he whispered in my ear, he's gonna hang around.
Okay.
Do we want to, we can release that now and tell Adam and whoever else is downstairs, or we hold off till tomorrow and just say we're done with the deliberation and the item, we're moving on if you want to come up for the rest of the agenda.
It would be more comfortable for you.
It would be more comfortable for me to do it tomorrow.
Tomorrow, we will release. To everybody at the same time.
But give me a second, I'm gonna let them.
I don't want you to be the human shield.
Job, isn't it? And that's a new job description that the city had everybody do.
Airport human shield.
Airport human shield.
We forgot to have that, don't we?
You have to deliver bad news.
He's the face of the airport.
No, when we're done, that's gonna be.
Oh, yeah.
Airport.
I'm really,
With enough money.
I get invested in that idea.
Me too. Let's take some motions.
Well, I was gonna mention, so Harold, who's been, in Galesburg River.
Yeah.
They just put out a press release tonight that they're renaming the Galesburg Airport, like Harold Timmons.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Harold Timmons, Harold W.
Harold W.
Timmons Regional, they got the regional airport. They got the regional airport, thing because of their things, well, something I want to ask Mike about is, like, cause they might get extra funding for that too, but based on even their usage, they were able to get that designation.
He sure deserves that.
So they're retaining the whole airport.
We're gonna have your name and then regional airport.
Yeah, it's a big deal, but he's been there for, 55 years.
Yeah, that's really neat.
It's really cool.
You guys are wondering, I will.
Well, let's get back.
They were leaving.
Don't send a man in to do what clearly was a women's job. Yeah, they had a 7-point lead at halftime and they lost 89-80.
That's like almost reverse what happened last night.
4-point lead with 7 minutes to go.
Typical Iowa.
All right, airport construction projects, FAA grant projects, 1230. Again, we're dealing with the manufacturer on the reels over there. It's outside of that, we are still waiting for FAA to respond to us to give us any type of date for the flight check.
I just talked to the electrical contractor today. He's been reached out to the manufacturer for the reels 2 or 3 times, and the other day when I talked to him, they had not gotten back to him. I called again today and I just left a voicemail with him. But we're finding, just an FYI, that these reels, that manufacturer's reels has had board problems at 5 different locations where we've been. And so I've talked to the FAA about seeing if they can even take them off of the approved until their issues fixed, because boards keep going bad, and the FAA airports people that we work with have no desire to have to pay to refly because the reels are failing the day that they're supposed to show up, type of thing. And that has happened in a couple places. So we don't want to, when the FAA calls and says, yeah, we schedule you for a flight check, we want to make sure that they're working. We'll check the week before. I'll probably come check on the day before, maybe an hour before, just.
So this is reels, not happy.
It's
reels.
Reels.
But they still have to be flight checked.
Yeah, sure.
And we want to do it all at one time because
The pappies are not on either. Because we're trying to conserve FAA flight checks, so we want to do them all at once. Otherwise, it's like $8,000 a flight.
Yeah.
Well, Ryan and I will stand on the left and right side with some flashlights.
Yeah, there you go.
It'll be fine.
Okay.
Just shine a laser. at-
No, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
Okay.
Solar power project, we are generating power off of our phase 1. We are working with the contractor and the city IT to deal with the monitoring system. The monitoring system isn't quite up and running to where we can go to a website and see what we're producing. Outside of that, we did schedule a walkthrough and some final stuff with that next week. I think it's Wednesday. But it seems to be working. I mean, the meter says it's generating power. You can tell when it's pulling power from the grid or when it's producing an overabundance of power. And so far, I haven't seen the overabundance, but I've seen it pretty close to neutral.
Some sunshine.
We have had some sunshine. I need to get out there right at like the height of the day and maybe turn the power off in the terminal building or something. But all in all, I mean, we're getting close to wrapping that project up, and I'm real happy with it. The FAA 26 pre-application, we did get some comments back from the FAA. For the most part, it was just things are low in priority, may not be funded. You may need to extend your timing of this project and this project back to back that we have listed. The one thing Junior did put in his notes was recommended the bill money we have, instead of putting it into solar, putting it into our runway stuff, because it's more likely to get things done.
I also like that.
We're gonna, yeah.
I was curious what your thoughts were, but.
Well, I have a couple other thoughts in terms of how that funding works, because with what it costs to do this project for solar, you did hear a couple of presentations allude to the fact that the FAA doesn't fund the structures for carports. I am 99% confident we do not have enough money for phase 2. So there's some things we can do. I mean, we can still do one of the 2 pieces. I mean, we have funding for basically half of it, essentially. I've talked to the state already about, what would they fund, like the engineering design, because, that agreement, because that's kind of what we're short. That's the dollar amount that we're short. If they did that, and I could still use
tens of thousands,
like 150.
Okay.
Yeah, it's.
It's a sizable.
It's a sizable
Yeah,
chunk.
okay.
But it's, I mean, it's another $700,000 project.
Yeah.
So. But that stems from, the FAA did announce our allocation of bill money for this year. About a couple of weeks ago, and it was 282,000, so we've got right now. Like 340,000 in bill money, and then if we anticipate 290 next year, we're at 6 and kind of need to be around 750.
Okay.
So that's the dilemma. We'll have some conversations about that in the future. And I've been talking to Matt. Matt and I have been talking about a hangar project, and could we use bill money for concrete and things like that, and to help facilitate a hangar project. So, you know, that's something we can throw in there that is a potential use for bill money that maybe we shift from phase 2 solar to that. I don't know.
Can you jog our memory? What other projects do we have listed for potential build projects?
Really, it was essentially apron, partial parallel taxiway for the 1230 or the solar. Those were kind of, and we were looking at those as more holistic, because partial parallel to the taxiway, each of those segments are like $500,000. It's, yeah, because we've used our, you know, 3 out of 5 years of our allotment. Our options are a little bit more limited.
Yep. Okay.
But outside of that, the FAA 26 application is in the packet. Really haven't changed anything. We did separate the FY 26 paving maintenance projects out into individual projects because the FAA asked for that. But otherwise, in terms of order or priority, we really haven't changed anything. So if everybody is okay with that, we will have Chris sign the application, pre-application document, and send it off to the FAA with our comments of,
yeah,
just to respond to the juniors.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Yes.
I see a sufficient number of head nods. DOT grant application projects, again, this kind of dovetails into those continuing conversations of what do we want to do for a grant project next spring. You know, terminal building being the terminal building, I still had the concepts of doing something with the HVAC system to try to minimize some of our costs here. There's still lighting. These are all incandescent based lights. I mean, that probably gets pricey real fast, but
It's like standard light bulbs or anything?
actually these, I don't remember. Honestly, don't remember. It's like light bulbs.
Lowe's and Home Depot are a thing.
Yeah.
Need a good ladder.
Can fun.
Scaffolding.
So yeah, again, coming up January, February, we'll probably have a little bit more detailed conversation about these projects. Airport operations budget, no news on the budget. We are waiting for taxiway light parts so that our taxiway lights function like they're supposed to. I think I did have everybody included in that email as a commission, just to, we know the taxiway lights are failing on occasion, and unfortunately, because of the supplier and the manufacturer, we just don't have repair parts until early January. Budget meetings of City Hall are both during the week. The first one, I think, is January 13th. Second. Yes, January 13th is our operation budget review. January 22nd is the capital projects presentation. I typically do those, but I would encourage everybody to, if you're not going to listen live, to listen to the operations budget presentation that the city manager does. He kind of gave staff and department heads a preview of it. And it's not going to be a pretty couple of years for the next couple of years. Management, grass landing operations, we did get our approval letter from FSDO, so we do have a few things we need to do to just make sure we're coordinating with our airport offices and we'll work on that kind of over the winter and then.
Okay, so I know you have to have the land ready, you have to have it flat, you have, and all of, will it have to have snow removed?
So we won't run this during the winter. Basically, it's gonna be like a.
Spring, summer.
Yeah,
Just.
it's gonna be a traditional like summer grass landing strip, like what Amanda runs.
Okay.
So we will not market, right?
As far as I know, we do not have to market. That's my understanding at the moment.
The email from them or the letter from them made it sound like it had to be charted though.
That's what I'm working on, like, there was some references to AOP updates and things like that I'm a little confused on.
Yeah,
Well, we have to have a local procedure.
So, and there's some NOTAM information that needs to go up, and so far I have not found anybody in the country or in the NOTAM system that has anything that details. It could also be the right time of year for that, but. Yeah, I'm working through trying to figure out what all we need to do and be able to better handle that come spring when we thaw out and can actually work there.
Yeah. But it says issue NOTAMs as needed, so maybe, I wouldn't think this would be a NOTAM thing to establish it, I think would be. If it's muddy or there's.
Yeah, probably conditional, if it's not advisable to use, I think we are charting the course on what needs to be done. We are the groundbreaker, so.
I don't know how you do you issue a local procedure?
I don't know.
The same, well, how did we produce our noise abatement procedures?
We wrote them in the AFD, it says noise abatement procedures, see, call city manager, call airport manager.
There's your procedure.
A lot of airports have special little local departure procedures, like the flight, so you reach the concrete plant and turn left. And
I don't know how we get stuff added to the chart supplement for our airport, but that's probably the easiest ways to do it, and it checks a box. I think you're gonna have to ask for a lot more forgiveness than permission on this one, because there's no prior art to.
It's just it. And I am struggling a little bit, but we'll get through it.
Is they done with it now?
As far as I can tell, Bisco's done. They got the letter.
They have washed their hands of it.
Yes, you're on your own now.
It's vague and confusing.
You wanted to know what to do now? Oh, that's bad.
Yeah.
What just starts
Just do it right.
Yeah.
Or else.
Events, again, as events get populated next year, we'll add those to the calendar, but I have reached out and we've had contact with Summer of the Arts. We've had the autocross, the car club, reach out with their dates, and I'm waiting for people to get back from Arizona for the Young Eagles stuff and that usually is like March or April. So we'll have the typical run of stuff. The movies, we do all 4 of those that were on the calendar that she asked about. They're all planned for.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's the events.
My turn?
You're up.
All right, cool. I'll be quick because it's late. Basically, we've been plowing snow, brushing snow. Equipment's been breaking because it's been cold. And so we're working through all those things, fuel trucks, and we had a fuel truck delivered today from our other office just because it's just unreliable, just that time of year. So anyway, other than that, things are going good. The helicopters have been still coming in out on time for medical stuff. And that's worked out pretty well, it seems like. I say we've had self-service pumps in and out, we've had trucks in up and down, but we've had a way of them to get fuel all the time, so that's good.
I have a question.
Yeah.
With the hospital moving to North Liberty, will that change, like the traffic?
I don't think so. That won't have emergency services, I don't think. Will it, more?
They may have some, but, yeah, I imagine there could be some helicopter traffic there, but it's not like they're moving the hospital. They're adding another hospital.
I don't know, I don't think that they are. Okay. I think the trauma center will still be here probably.
Oh, yeah.
For helicopter traffic and that's what most all of this.
That's crap.
And transfer stuff. Yeah.
I haven't seen any helipad stuff in any preliminary design conversation, so.
I know some people have this.
But yeah, well, that's pretty much it for jet air stuff. Does anybody have any questions? All right, cool.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
man.
Yeah.
Commission member reports, anything from commission?
Nope.
Oh, the next meeting. It's on my birthday, so. I'll be there.
We were gonna have cake and everything.
Next week, so enjoy on my behalf.
Balloons.
Not calling me going out of town, so.
I'll be here,
I
I think. Or sorry.
almost likely be here. We did skip over staff report, anything for you?
Just a reminder, I'm gonna be on vacation from December 23rd through January 6th, or 5th, whatever. I'll be back on the 6th.
That's actually Monday.
May be out of town for that second half of that, but I'll send an email out. Just be aware of it, something happens.
Are you gonna be in now?
Until January 6th, that's perfect. Well, I'll be in now. I never know, Ryan.
So we'll have enough for a quorum, I think, we think.
I mean, I'll.
Yeah.
It sounds like we have 4 out of 5, so.
No, I was just thinking for the week, the mic's gonna be out. Alright.
I'm in town.
Okay.
So,
If we, yeah, like, if you're in and out, something happens.
Yeah,
that's
we'll be
unforeseen, I mean, we can figure it out. I can use the binder, like.
Yeah,
Has binder,
that binder, it's
has
like.
the binder been updated lately? Would you like me to update it?
What do you mean
We
updated?
love
Has-
love that.
The airport's been here 100 years. It hasn't changed much. We don't have like 3 new runways, right?
Names. The names, in case of disasters, who to contact needs,
For the most part, those haven't changed.
okay.
Yeah.
So that's the one that always worried me.
Oh, I wasn't ever worried about that. I was never worried about that. I knew we could get in touch with Mike. I knew we could get in touch with Matt. Jennifer, we've got, yeah.
You weren't here when the plane went off the end of the runway and it landed on Riverside, right?
Yeah, but like,
Yeah.
That was here.
I wasn't here either.
what's Matt gonna do?
My brother came though.
Yeah, your brother.
Yeah, he was here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he came. I mean,
He took some pictures, helped him get it all through.
it's like that.
You call the police, you call the police, you maybe call the NTSB. Honestly, that's the pilot's job.
Well, and the other one was, I always kept the binder with me. Because
Oh, God,
one of,
Yeah, but
one of the things was, well, what if there's something that hits the airport? Then you have no information of who to contact and what to do.
That's why digital's good. They can be everywhere. I
Okay.
no, I absolutely understand, but for the sake of the holidays,
Remember, I'm gonna let it out.
it's not an emergency. If anything
If
comes
something's
up,
around.
reach out, we'll figure it out.
Okay. We ready to adjourn?
I haven't fallen in favor. I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.